Chapter 1788. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Kui Xinhu and the other two, Liu Yunpeng, Xia Wanjin, and Xiong Longxiang all arrived. As soon as they saw Chu Yang, their pupils immediately shrank. At first glance, Chu Yang seemed to be a person without cultivation, let alone his current realm. In addition, their divine senses did not detect any danger at all, which made them even more shocked. In other words, Chu Yang had improved so much in such a short period of time that their sharp divine senses, the intuition that martial artists relied on, were completely deceived by Chu Yang. Even the death spirit realm is useless against this guy. What kind of realm has this guy reached? The three of them were extremely shocked. Because of the origin of the world that Chu Yang had given them, the three of them had all broken through to the death spirit realm and had a solid foundation. Originally, they thought that they would be able to suppress Chu Yang, but the moment they saw Chu Yang, they realized that this idea was a joke. They were already sweating. Even if they knew that Chu Yang was amazing, it would be difficult for them to detect Chu Yang sneaking up on them. At that time, they would be at Chu Yang's mercy. Waraha. The parrot had cultivated to the third level of the transcendence realm in a short period of time and condensed its own transcendence image. It was very proud and arrogant. It poked at Chu Yang with its wings. Chu Hang, what realm are you at? Do you dare to show it? Do you dare to fight with this divine bird? Little bitch, are you sure? Chu Yang thought. Little bitch, I haven't seen you for a few days and you've grown so much. You actually dare to clamor at me. My realm is not high. I'm only at the 9th level of the soul fusion realm. I've just broken through 9 levels. He revealed his aura. He was only at the 9th level of the soul fusion realm. Waraha. The parrot was completely excited. Hey, that thing. Today is the time for this divine bird to wash away my shame. I'll definitely strip you naked and hang you up to dry. It directly attacked, and a much smaller parrot appeared behind it. It looked like a pygmy parrot and a colorful sparrow. Ha. Chu Yang saw the parrot's transcendence image and burst into laughter. Little bee, that's your son. Who's your son's mother? After a pause, he praised the parrot. Little bee, you did a good job keeping your secret. Bah. The parrot flew into a rage out of humiliation. Scammer Chu, I'll show you the power of my divine bird Dharma form. I'll beat you until you kneel and beg for mercy. Swoosh. The parrot's Dharma idol flew toward Chu Yang at top speed, then vanished. However, Chu Yang could clearly sense some sort of natural law power descending upon him. He didn't stop the parrot and let it do what it wanted. In just an instant, a Chu Yang silently appeared in front of Chu Yang. The colorful Chu Yang's strength was no different from Chu Yang's. It was like a mirror image of Chu Yang. Replicating my opponent. Chu Yang squinted his eyes. The ability of this transcendence image was not to be underestimated. If it could completely replicate his strength, it would be simply heaven-defying. Waraha. The parrot put its wings on its waist and laughed arrogantly. Chu Hang, beat yourself up. This divine bird's idea is not bad, right? Are you satisfied? After that, it pointed at Liu Yunpeng, Xia Wanjin, and Xiong Longxiang one by one. It proudly said, this divine bird will tell you. These three have all been hit. It's useless even if they're in the death spirit realm. If this divine bird wants them to beat themselves up, they must beat themselves up. Chu Hang, this time it's your turn. Surrender. The last sentence was not from the parrot, but from the colorful Chu Yang. Chapter 1789. Rumble. The multicolored Chu Yang exploded with a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering aura. Like a colorful sun, the spear of judgment formed in his hand, which he thrust toward Chu Yang. On the spear of judgment, chains of order appeared, making clanging sounds. When the spear of judgment was about to pierce down, they directly locked onto Chu Yang. Chu Yang's spear of judgment didn't have chains of order when he was in the heavenly spirit world. In other words, the spear of judgment of radiance and light had been replicated, but only partially. Compared to the sun of radiance and light, the spear of judgment of radiance and light used by the parrot's Dharma idol was on a completely different level. Maybe the parrot will be able to replicate it after I use it, If he could learn the abilities of the parrot's Dharma idol, he would be able to use them against his enemies. Therefore, as he pondered the parrot's divine ability with a frown, the parrot became even more complacent. Wahahaha! This divine bird really is invincible. The parrot roared with laughter. Chu Yang casually punched out, and his fist moved as fast as the speed of light. The multicolored Chu Yang was sent flying. The parrot's laughter came to an abrupt halt, and its arrogant demeanor froze. Bang! Before it could react, the multicolored Chu Yang, who had fallen in front of it, exploded. The huge energy sent it flying. It was dripping with blood, and its body was burning with pain. It felt incomparably sore. So this is your so-called invincibility, you little bitch. Invincibility that can't even withstand a single blow? Chu Yang was flabbergasted. He hadn't even used his full strength yet. The parrot didn't even hear Chu Yang's words. Its eyes almost popped out of their sockets. It was so proud of itself, and had been showing off its invincible skills everywhere. But now they were nothing more than dog farts. How could its legend be destroyed so quickly? Liu Yunpeng and the others were also stunned. Although their cultivation bases were higher than the parrot's, they had been tormented by the parrot for some time now. They had been beating themselves up all day long, to the point where they were about to vomit. They knew all too well how difficult it was to deal with the parrot's ultimate move. However, the thing that they were cursing was actually ineffective on Chu Yang. For a long time, the parrot didn't utter a single word. When it recovered, it tried again and again, but the result was the same. It couldn't withstand a single blow. After that, the parrot acted like a child whose favorite toy had been broken by Chu Yang. It went straight for Chu Yang. Chu Hang, you jinx. Give me back my legend. Little bastard, you're not done yet. Chu Yang made his move. With a kai sound, a beam of light swept over. All of the feathers on its body fell off one after another. It was incomparably cool and refreshing. Just as it was wondering what the hell was going on, with a swoosh, the shadow formed by the feathers suddenly moved and landed on its body. Its two wings swayed in front of it. Immediately, a beam of light suspended it in midair. The parrot was beaten half to death. It couldn't accept it for a short time. It cried out, "My legend. My invincibility. Chu Hang, I'll definitely draw a circle and curse you." Afterward, it was listless and sullen. It surrendered. "Chu Hang, I feel hurt. My heart hurts. When I get back, I'll definitely hide in a corner, lick my wounds, and be a bird again. Little bastard, a bird has to keep a low profile. That's what I learned from the pain." Chapter 1790. Chu Yang sneered and opened the letter of challenge. Two words immediately appeared in his eyes, Luo Xiu. This name immediately reminded him of another person, Yi Hai. Luo Xiu had no choice but to fight with you. At that time, can you spare Luo Xiu's life? Yi Hai's request was more or less like this. Chu Yang didn't think he remembered it wrong. Gong Sun Long. Chu Yang was furious. Gong Sun Long had cut off one of his elder brother's arms. As soon as he entered the Sky Academy, he was provoked by Gong Sun Long's younger brother and clansman. Although he killed Gong Sun Long's younger brother and clansman, the hatred was not over. Gong Sun Long's younger brother and clansman had died because they had asked for it. They wanted to kill Chu Yang, so Chu Yang killed them in return. He didn't have any burden, nor did he have any guilt. It was not enough to offset the hatred. Gong Sun Long had cut off one of his elder brother's arms. This hatred had to be avenged. Now, Chu Yang hadn't gone to find Gong Sun Long, but Gong Sun Long had come to him. Gong Sun Long's impatience should have something to do with the battle between me and Chen Burang. He wants to test my strength on behalf of Chen Burang. Chu Yang sneered. He thinks Luo Xiu's strength is enough, doesn't he? Hearing his words, Liu Yunpeng, Xia Wanjin, and Xiong Longxiang couldn't help but smile bitterly. If it was Chu Yang before, Luo Xiu's strength might be enough to test him, but now it was just wishful thinking. The three of them had only heard of Luo Xiu recently. He was a new star in the inner yard. He was very belligerent and had defeated more than a dozen experts in the inner yard. He even killed some of his opponents with one move, which was quite amazing. Luo Xiao was also at the 5th level of the Nirvana realm. Although Chu Yang didn't mention Gong Sun Long, the three of them knew who Chu Yang was mocking. After all, they had been with Parrot for so long. How could they not know about the hatred between Gong Sun Long and Chu Yang? In addition, Luo Xiao had a relationship with Gong Sun Long. Everyone in the Sky Academy probably knew about it. The three of them were naturally not ordinary people. Of course, they immediately understood Gong Sun Long's intention to scout for Chen Burang. This was just a scheme to kill someone with a borrowed knife. Borrowing Chen Burang's knife to kill Chu Yang. The three of them looked down on Gong Sun Long. Even though Gong Sun Long had a grudge against Gong Sun Long, he only dared to make some small moves under the stage. He didn't have the courage to face Chu Yang. Waha, there's another unlucky guy, there's another show to watch. The parrot, which had already suffered a huge blow, didn't even need to lick its wounds now. It was revived with full blood, and it began to laugh wildly. It was full of evil humor. With a slight movement, the wings were reattached. Its movements were extremely practiced. Then, the feathers on its body grew out one by one. They were even more beautiful than before. Flutter. It was as if it had picked up a great fortune. It was so excited that it was like a butterfly, flying up and down. Pit Chu, this time you have to make it more interesting. Recently, when you weren't here, this divine bird was about to be bored to death by these idiots. They are all too boring. Kui Xinhu and the other two were fine. Parrots were always like this. They were unhappy when there was no fun. However, Liu Yunpeng and the other two's faces darkened. They were either shameless or fools. You deserve to have your wings cut off. You deserve it. No, it's obviously uncomfortable. I understand. As soon as the three finished speaking, the parrot remembered the past when its legend was shattered. It almost jumped up and shouted, "Hey, you three, are you missing the invincibility of this divine bird? This divine bird will satisfy you. Take this." Parrot's ultimate supreme skill, Parrot's unique and righteous skill. The little parrot appeared again. It flapped its wings and flew out. It split into three and then disappeared. Chapter 1791. It's an AoE skill. Chu Yang was shocked. The parrot's skill was really heaven-defying, making him a little envious. But why can't it work on me? As soon as this thought appeared, he immediately understood. His physical body had become a god. His flesh shell could now be said to be a godhead, as if there was a layer of protection, isolating the parrot's divine skill and making it ineffective. Although my fleshly body has become a god, it's still made of flesh and blood. It can't compare to godhood. However, compared to godhood, my fleshly body has limitless possibilities. If I can strengthen it further, I might even be invulnerable to all magic. Chu Yang found a new direction. If he could do it, he would really be invincible. Low-key. In the future, if I have 10% of my strength, I will at most use 10%. If I am forced, I will at most use 20% of my strength. 30% is the limit. The experience in the strange world made Chu Yang much more cautious than before. He decided to turn over a new leaf and be a low-key person in the future. While the parrot and Liu Yunpeng were making a ruckus, someone outside asked to see him. His surname was Yi and his name was Yi Hai. It's probably another request. Chu Yang was a little reluctant, but in the end, he went out. When the parrot saw this, it immediately gave up and flew onto Chu Yang's shoulder. Then, it left arrogantly, causing Liu Yunpeng and the other two to curse. Because although the parrot left, they still had to beat themselves up. After a while, Chu Yang saw Yi Hai outside. It was Yi Hai who had asked him to spare Luo Xiao's life. "Greetings, Brother Chu." Yi Hai was happy to see Chu Yang. He immediately cupped his fists and then smiled bitterly. "Hey, that thing." The parrot on Chu Yang's shoulder shouted, "What bullshit, Brother Chu? Do you know how to behave and speak the human language? Call him Chu Shenxian. Chu Hang just stole this divine bird's legend. Greetings, Chu Shenxian." Yi Hai didn't have much resistance to this. Saying that Chu Yang was a legend was also true. Since when had anyone from the Eastern Wilderness been able to show off in the East Continent and suppress the Sky Academy all by himself? The only exception was Chu Yang. Little bitch, don't talk nonsense. After Chu Yang threw a sentence to the parrot, he said to Yi Hai, previously, you begged me to spare Luo Xiu's life, and I agreed. You know that I'm a man of my word. Have there been any changes this time? Yi Hai was taken aback when he heard this. He was incomparably astonished. He secretly exclaimed in his heart, he knows the meaning of the song just by listening to it. I didn't say anything, but he seems to already know everything. He's truly inhuman. He did not conceal it as he nodded his head and said, that is indeed the case. Gong Sun Liang has given Luo Xiu a death order. This time, there will only be 2 results for the battle between him and Chu Shenhua. After a pause, Yi Hai felt sorrowful and said seriously, either you die, or Luo Xiu. There can't be any other results. Otherwise, Luo Xiu's entire family will be wiped out. Wiped out. Chu Yang's anger surged in his heart, like stormy waves in the ocean. This was not only extremely insidious, but also an animal's behavior, which made him particularly angry. At this moment, his killing intent towards Gong Sun Long had also risen to the extreme. If he didn't kill Gong Sun Long, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to feel at ease. So, this time, you've changed your mind. You're asking me not to show mercy and to give Luo Xiu a quick death, right? Chu Yang's tone was very cold. It was really infuriating to force someone to such a state. No. After a long while, Yi Hai opened his mouth and said, this time, I'm still asking Chu Shenhua to think of a way to save Luo Xiu and his entire family. Chapter 1792. He kowtowed 3 times, but did not make any promises, nor did he say anything about repayment. His pleading words were definitely not sincere, and showed a sense of urgency and other emotions. In short, Yi Hai did not seem to know how to beg others, but this made Chu Yang even more moved. Perhaps, this is the first time in his life that he has knelt to someone and begged for help. A man had gold under his knees. Which man would kneel so easily? Naturally, it was because he had encountered difficulties. In life, who would not encounter difficulties? Who could guarantee that one day, he would have to kneel and beg for help? It was fine in this life, but in his previous life, Chu Yang definitely did not dare to guarantee it, so the anger in his heart was even more intense. A dignified man was actually forced into such a state by this bastard Gong Sun Liang. He sympathized with Luo Xiu, and admired Yi Hai. Not everyone could be like Luo Xiu, who could make friends with Yi Hai, such a brother. On this point, Chu Yang was incomparably envious of Luo Xiu, but this was a bit difficult. However, when he thought about how Luo Xiu had fallen into such a situation because of him, Chu Yang was unable to say such words. But on second thought, if it wasn't for him, Luo Xiu would probably have the same ending. Without him, there would be others. Gong Sun Liang always had enemies, powerful enemies, and Luo Xiu's ending was already destined. In the end, he still did not speak. After thinking for a while, he said, has Luo Xiu always been Gong Sun Long's servant? No. Yi Hai said truthfully, Luo Xiu chose to rely on Gong Sun Long because of cultivation resources. People like us, if not for this, would not have the chance to stand out. The last sentence was an explanation of Luo Xiu's actions. However, Chu Yang could not agree. What do you mean by people like us? Since ancient times, there have been many people who have achieved great things, but I have never seen them like you and Luo Xiu, belittling themselves and despairing themselves. If they had the same mentality as the 2 of you, they would definitely disappear in the long river of history and become nameless. Yi Hai was slightly shocked, and he said to himself in his heart, it really seems to be like this. Luo Xiu and I seem to be feeling remorseful and blaming the heavens and others. He looked at Chu Yang again, and the shock in his heart grew even greater. How much better can Chu Yang be compared to me and Luo Xiu? He has talent, but his status is extremely low, and he is derided as a wild dog. But when have I ever seen him dissatisfied with his status because of his low status? Brother Chu, I've learned a lot. Yi Hai stood up and bowed deeply to Chu Yang. Do you know what's most buried under our feet? Yi Hai was slightly stunned. He didn't know what Chu Yang wanted to say, so he could only listen. Ambition, it's ambition. To put it nicely, it's a grand ambition, a dream. I don't know how many people have brought their ambitions to rest on the ground. Some may regret it, and some may fail, but they have no regrets. Because they were once brilliant, and they gave it their all. There are also some who are calmly accepting their own choices and tasting the bitter fruits brought about by their own choices. Chu Yang wasn't trying to be a good teacher and educate Yi Hai. He was just speaking from the bottom of his heart. In his opinion, there should be many people with a restless heart, a heart that had no place to rest. What they wanted to pursue, what they wanted to achieve, it made them restless, unable to settle down, unable to obtain peace in their hearts. Perhaps, even until death, they wouldn't be able to calm down, and would fall to the ground with unwillingness. Naturally, he also had a restless heart, but he didn't know if it would be easier to obtain everything he wanted by calming down his restless heart first, or if it would be easier to obtain everything he wanted by following the restless heart at this moment with endless desire and restlessness. But could a restless heart be able to calm down after obtaining everything he wanted in the beginning? Perhaps, if the heart is restless, even after obtaining what it originally wanted, it wouldn't be calm, and would still desire more. In the end, a person's desire will never be satisfied. Chapter 1793. Brother Chu, what are you trying to say? Yi Hai didn't understand what Chu Yang meant. Phew. Chu Yang exhaled and said, everyone has to be responsible for their own choices. I will try my best to do what I can do. But, there has never been a savior in this world. And, I'm not a savior. If Luo Xiu didn't struggle anymore, wouldn't it be ridiculous if he, Chu Yang, was burning with anxiety at the side? Chu Yang's strength had increased greatly. This time, it was easy to save Luo Xiu, but it was a little difficult to save Luo Xiu's family, but it should still be possible. He could save them, but even if he could teach them, he had to teach Luo Xiu a lesson. At least, he had to let him know that there was no free breakfast in this world, and if you made a choice, then you must bear the consequences. Moreover, in this world, except for himself, who could save himself? What ability did Chu Yang have to decide the life and death of Luo Xiu's family? This time he had some strength, but what about the next time he faced a stronger enemy? This time it was Luo Xiu, and next time it would be someone else. It was impossible for Chu Yang to continue paying for the stupidity of others. In fact, he would even use his own life to pay for it. He wasn't selfless and great to such an extent. Even if he was strong enough, he wouldn't endlessly meddle in such trivial matters. This time, Gong Sun Long had completely annoyed Chu Yang. I understand. Yi Hai said after a long time, I will truthfully convey Brother Chu's meaning to Luo Xiu. When he said so, Chu Yang knew that Yi Hai had understood his meaning. Brother Chu, goodbye. Chu Yang didn't agree, but Yi Hai knew that this was the answer, so he cupped his fist and was about to leave. By the way, pass a message to Gong Sun Long for me, he is very incompetent. When Yi Hai heard Chu Yang's words, it was as if he had been struck by lightning. His entire body shook violently. Then, he said in astonishment, how do you know that I have come here with my own intentions? And, I also have Gong Sun Long's intentions? Chu Yang sneered, is it so hard to think of? Since Gong Sun Long wants to test me, he doesn't just want to understand my strength, but also my character and temperament. Isn't such a test very suitable? When Yi Hai heard this explanation, his astonishment disappeared instantly. The problem Gong Sun Long gave Chu Yang was to directly test one's heart. This was indeed a bit too obvious. How could someone like Chu Yang not notice it? However, only a person like Chu Yang would be able to detect it. If it were someone else, perhaps they wouldn't have thought of this at all. I think Gong Sun Long should have gotten a satisfactory answer. I'm a soft-hearted person, but I'm also extremely selfish. Hearing this, Yi Hai was speechless for a long time. Just a moment ago, he was still complaining that Chu Yang was cold-hearted. However, at this moment, he realized that Chu Yang knew that Gong Sun Liang was probing him. Gong Sun Liang was trying to understand his temperament, but Gong Sun Liang was still so direct and honest. Especially after Chu Yang directly exposed all of this, he understood that Chu Yang had exposed even more. Chu Yang wasn't just soft-hearted, He was simply too soft-hearted. Because Chu Yang had given such an answer, he would be able to give Gong Sun Long a satisfactory answer when he returned. Chu Yang didn't just take care of Luo Xiu, he also took care of Yi Hai. However, Chu Yang wasn't afraid of any of this. So what if Gong Sun Long knew? This was a true hero, and Gong Sun Long was indeed incompetent. In an instant, Yi Hai agreed with Chu Yang's words, and Chu Yang admired him from the bottom of his heart. It wasn't because of Chu Yang's amazing talent, nor was it because of anything else. As for Chu Yang's eccentricities, it didn't affect him at all. Brother Chu, farewell. Chapter 1794. Chu Yang nodded and watched him leave. Chu Hang, why don't you ask where Luo Xiu's family is? Wouldn't it be troublesome if we look for them ourselves? The parrot, who hadn't spoken for a long time, spoke again. It was very unhappy and said disdainfully, Gong Sun Long is really disgusting. He used innocent people to make a fuss. He is really a villain. There is no lack of such people in the world. Humph. The parrot was also a little angry. It said again, don't look for me for this trivial matter. If you want to look for this divine bird, Chu Hang, you should first find out Luo Xiu's whereabouts. This divine bird hates trouble. Why should I look for him? The parrot hated trouble, but Chu Yang hated it even more. How can I not look for him? Do you think it is easy to move a family? Do you think they will be willing to leave their home? Chu Yang continued, moving them away can't be done. We will have to follow up later. How long will it take? The parrot heard this and said, this is really troublesome. The most basic etiquette has to be done. People have to leave their home. I have to ask about their well-being when I have time. Finally, it said, Chu Hang, this divine bird won't get involved in this trivial matter. Don't involve this divine bird. Little bastard, your attitude is wrong. A bird should be passionate and righteous. You should roar when you see injustice. How can you learn from me and dislike all kinds of troubles? I am depraved. You can't make such a mistake. Nonsense. The parrot said angrily, Chu Hang, you have stolen many words. Don't think you can get away with the word depraved. These two words belong to this divine bird. As for what Chu Yang was going to do, the parrot didn't know. He should be making a fuss about Gong Sun Long. Yi Hai left Chu Yang's place and went straight back to report to Gong Sun Long. At this moment, Gong Sun Long's aura was incomparably restrained. He was no different from an ordinary person. No one could see his cultivation. His clothes were gorgeous, and he looked like a young master. The wounds on his arms had disappeared, and he seemed to like showing his arms. Did you see? Yes. In that case, he already knows what I want him to know. Speaking to that point, Gong Sun Long could not help but reveal a look of disdain. He appeared to be very disdainful. Yes, he knows everything. Yi Hai answered honestly, without a single word of falsehood. What was his reaction? Was he extremely angry? Gong Sun Long's mocking expression became even stronger. He seemed to be extremely confident in his judgment. I can't see his reaction, and I can't see his anger. Of course, Yi Hai had felt Chu Yang's anger in that instant, but at that moment, he chose to hide it. Or rather, it could be said that he deliberately wanted to make Gong Sun Long unhappy, because Chu Yang had given him enough for him to handle Gong Sun Long with ease. Oh. The smile on Gong Sun Long's face disappeared. He asked in an emotionless voice, what did he say? There are a few general points. Yi Hai was prepared in advance, afraid that if he said one or two things, Gong Sun Long would comment, and then he would say something else, directly slapping Gong Sun Long in the face. At least, Yi Hai thought that there was definitely such a possibility. He said that he would do his best to do what he could, but everyone has to be responsible for their own choices. Luo Xiu is no exception. Gong Sun Long frowned slightly, and then he sneered, what a sneer. How selfish. You've found a good excuse. Since you've become my dog, you should be aware that you're my dog as well. This sentence filled Yi Hai's heart with anger, but he didn't dare to show it. Chapter 1795. What else did he say? He also said that there is no savior in this world. The only one who can save Luo Xiu and his family is Luo Xiu himself. Humph. Gong Sun Long sneered even more coldly. He actually instigated my dog to rebel. He even denied his own cause. Everything has nothing to do with him. Everything is just me, the owner, abusing my own dog. His face suddenly turned gloomy. Things were completely different from what he had expected. Finally, he said, his heart is hard enough, and he is vicious enough. Is he as hard as you, and as vicious as you? Yi Hai sneered even more in his heart. This was really a powerful logic, a godlike logic. Chu Yang was indifferent, and he couldn't blame him at all. Finally, he asked me to tell you something. As Yi Hai spoke, he unconsciously swallowed his saliva. He was very nervous, and he was afraid that Gong Sun Long would kill him. After he was ready, he said clearly, he said, "You are not dirty." However, what was surprising was that there was no such thing as a thunderous rage. Gong Sun Long didn't even get angry. He was just slightly surprised. I underestimated this wild dog. He actually saw through my intentions. No wonder his reaction was so cold. After a pause, he couldn't help but sneer. He is still too proud. With just one sentence, I know what kind of person he is. He still cares about the life and death of Luo Xiu and his family. Pride and arrogance were also Gong Sun Long's judgment of Chu Yang. This judgment was also in line with Chu Yang's usual behavior. Of course, Gong Sun Long had to admit that Chu Yang's temperament and cunning were amazing, not to mention his talent. Therefore, his final judgment of Chu Yang was that this was a person with a bit of a problem, but he was definitely a difficult, troublesome, and even a terrifying opponent. Is that all? Is that all? Gong Sun Long didn't stop there. He asked Yi Hai to copy Chu Yang's words and even his tone as much as possible. Because Yi Hai was hiding something, Gong Sun Long didn't rush him when he was organizing his thoughts, so he had enough time to deal with it. Do you know what's most buried under our feet? Ambition. It's ambition. To put it nicely, it is a grand ambition, a dream. I don't know how many people have brought their ambitions to rest on the ground. Some may regret it, some may fail, but they have no regrets, because they were once brilliant. Yi Hai told Gong Sun Long about Chu Yang's sigh and finally convinced him. Gong Sun Long let out a long sigh of relief in his heart, but his heart was also on edge. After Gong Sun Long heard Chu Yang's exclamation, he seemed to be very touched. He didn't say anything for a long time. Obviously, Chu Yang agreed with Chu Yang more, and Chu Yang was more vigilant and cautious. Yi Hai even found that the disdain Gong Sun Long had for Chu Yang had completely disappeared, replaced by a thick sense of fear. This is really not a good thing. Yi Hai would rather see Gong Sun Long disdain for Chu Yang and disdain for Chu Yang than see this kind of Gong Sun Long. This kind of Gong Sun Long could face his opponent directly and be so careful and cautious. He was too difficult to deal with, and also more terrifying. For him to sigh like this, his awareness is clearly not low. In the end, I still underestimated this wild dog. Those were Gong Suanlong's final words. After that, he told Yi Hai to scram and called the people of the Chengkuan party in. As for what he planned to do, Yi Hai had no idea. But one thing he was certain of was that Gong Sunlong had already made the necessary adjustments and made a very good response. I wonder how he will break this time. The him that Yi Hai was talking about was naturally Chu Yang. Chapter 1796. Chu Yang didn't reject Luo Xiu's challenge. There were probably two reasons for this. In fact, just one was enough. Firstly, Luo Xiu longed to fight with Chu Yang, so why couldn't he agree? Secondly, if Luo Xiu could not force Chu Yang to accept the challenge, then what use would Gong Sunlong have for a dog like Luo Xiu? Therefore, if Chu Yang did not agree, it would only force Luo Xiu to do something even crazier and more extreme. At that time, it would be even more troublesome. Trouble. What did Chu Yang hate the most in his life? He felt that he already had the answer now. He was afraid of trouble, and even more afraid of causing trouble for others. Before the battle between Luo Xiu and Chu Yang, Yi Hai saw Luo Xiu. He saw Luo Xiu carefully wiping a long saber, a dark red long saber. This blade was the blade that Gong Sunlong gave to Luo Xiu, the Azura blade. When the Azura blade and the Azura secret technique were combined, the power would be even greater and even more astonishing. Don't you want to ask something? Luo Xiu did not say anything. His mind was focused on the Azura blade, so Yi Hai could only speak. His patience had always been poor, and it seemed that he would not be able to change this habit for the rest of his life. Even if I don't ask, you will tell. Luo Xiu still looked at the blade in his hand, at the dark red blade. From it, he seemed to see the flow of blood, the flow of his own blood, and his eyes slightly revealed a deathly grey gaze. Originally, I thought that what he said was unnecessary, but now it seems that I was wrong. You are really unbearable, sigh. Yi Hai let out a long sigh and shook his head. Luo Xiu himself was already like this. If he gave up, what else could he ask of others? Luo Xiu finally stopped wiping the long blade. His gaze, which had been staring at the long blade, suddenly looked at Yi Hai. His gaze was as sharp as a blade. What did he say? You should know now, shouldn't you? I don't know. Yi Hai could only explain the meaning of Chu Yang's words. The one who wants to save you, the one who wants to save your family is, and definitely not him. This is clear enough. You should also understand. Of course I understand, but do I have a way? Luo Xiu's gaze was no longer sharp, but dimmer, and no longer fell on Yi Hai's body. Luo Xiu. Yi Hai suddenly laughed coldly and directly pointed at Luo Xiu and said, this point of yours, I suddenly feel that it makes people feel extremely disgusted. In my opinion, Gong Sun Long should be the only one who would be happy. The so-called angry should be like you. Yi Hai's words were like a dazzling blade beam that cut through the darkness in Luo Xiu's heart. His pupils shook. Who exactly am I showing my despair to? Who am I asking for sympathy? Who am I begging? This point of his was truly loathsome to the extreme. After he discovered it, he became incomparably repulsive, beyond redemption. Does Chu Yang have this kind of magic? It was not the first time Yi Hai had seen Luo Xiu's despairing behavior, but he had never criticized him. But after meeting Chu Yang, Yi Hai was completely different. If this was not Chu Yang's credit, Luo Xiu could not think of anyone else. Maybe. Yi Hai looked up at the sky. If he was you, he would definitely not be like this. At least, he would not make me feel that everything is gloomy, that everything is dim, that everything is hopeless, and that the only thing left is to blame the heavens and blame others. After a pause, Yi Hai suddenly laughed. I dare to bet with you that what he hates the most is to blame the heavens and blame others. Chapter 1797. He said that he would only do what he could do, and that everything else had nothing to do with him. Yi Hai said, from this, I can conclude that what he hates the most in his life, besides complaining about the heavens and others, is trouble. Am I causing him a lot of trouble? Luo Xiu's eyes darkened once again. He was most afraid of causing trouble for others, and such a big trouble at that. Yi Hai laughed sarcastically. Do you think you have the qualifications to bring him trouble? Luo Xiu was stunned, and this sentence couldn't help but appear in his mind. Chu Yang's contemptuous expression appeared, and he said, I only do what I can do. Ha ha. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. I really don't have the qualifications to bring him trouble, but I still brought him trouble. When he said that, he must have taken my feelings into consideration. Ha ha. Yi Hai also laughed out loud. Luo Xiu, you think too highly of yourself. The words of a person like Chu Yang usually make people feel very comfortable. Because they have long understood this principle, only by making themselves comfortable, others will feel comfortable. It seems that he is indeed such a person. Luo Xiu's smile hung on his face. I seem to be a good person as well. If other people heard this, they would definitely be very disappointed and uncomfortable, and even curse their mother. Yi Hai could only nod. Not everyone was like this. Many people thought that their requests were justified, and they were not afraid of giving it to others. They were even afraid that others would not be troublesome enough. Can you be any more excited? Then, he said to Luo Xiu, it's a blessing to have such an opponent, and to be able to die at the hands of such an opponent is even better, isn't it? Can your evaluation of him be too high? I bet that he will vomit if he hears it. Luo Xiu actually started to joke, and the light in his eyes also lit up. Even if it was death, there were different ways to die. Currently, he had two kinds of death: die proudly, die in a carefree manner, and draw the best end to his life. Of course, he could also die dejectedly, and before he died, his heart was already dead. In addition, he was a challenger. Since he had challenged the other party, he should give the other party the least bit of respect. He should be in his best condition and fight with the mentality of a superior, and not just throw away his life. This would disgust Chu Yang and also humiliate himself. He couldn't waste the last moments of his life like this. Similarly, if he was only Rui, Gong Sun Long would definitely not be satisfied, and the lives of his family would be in danger. Luo Xiu also found something to be proud of. Having a friend like Yi Hai was the proudest thing in his life. Not many people had friends who could give them the right guidance when they needed it the most. Luo Xiu had such a friend, so the smile on his face became even brighter, but he did not say half a word of thanks, nor did he have any expression of gratitude. Because all of this was unnecessary. To a friend like Yi Hai, thanking him was blasphemy. It was noon the next day, which was also the third day before the competition between the 6 academies. In the martial arts practice field of the Sky Academy. The sun was very good on this day, and Luo Xiu came early. He carefully looked at the ring over and over again, familiarizing himself with every corner, and only then did he feel at ease to bask in the sun. In the past, he did not feel much about the sun, and even hated the poisonous sun, but today, he particularly liked the sun. This may be the last sunshine in my life, Luo Xiu said to himself. After that, he glanced at the surroundings of the arena. Many people had already arrived, and many people's gazes had even landed on him. They were pointing at him and gossiping incessantly. Chapter 1798. As for why so many people knew about his battle with Chu Yang in advance, it couldn't be any simpler. However, he was too lazy to think about it, and even more lazy to care, because his current opponent was Chu Yang, and definitely not Gong Sun Long. It was just Chu Yang, and he already couldn't spare any effort. Yi Hai naturally came early. Shangguan Lan, Ji Yinmeng, and the others also came. Liu Yunpeng and the other two, Chen Burang, and even Long Xiaojun all appeared. It could be said that there were enough people, and the quality was good enough. They couldn't ask for more. Most of them should be here for Chu Yang. They should want to see how far Chu Yang had come after this period of time. This was also Gong Suanlong's original intention, and now it seemed that his original intention was in line with many people's. Chu Yang didn't come late, but he definitely didn't come early. He just came a little earlier than the agreed time. As soon as he arrived, all eyes couldn't help but look at him. In the past, at this time, he would generally say a few words, but he had already decided to keep a low profile, so he didn't show off. Of course, Luo Xiu was also a reason. Luo Xiu was an enemy, but he was different from other enemies, so he had to show some respect. Therefore, people were very surprised when they recognized Chu Yang. They were not used to the fact that Chu Yang was not tossed around. Shangguan Lan was also not used to it, and Ji Yinmeng was the same. The two women seemed to have long been used to Chu Yang's shameless and proud behavior. "Brother Chu, can't you let me bask in the sun for a while?" Luo Xiu, of course, also saw Chu Yang, but under the sunlight, he showed an incomparably bright smile, showing a happy face. "Brother Luo, are you saying that the sun is yours, and it has nothing to do with me?" Chu Yang asked with a smile. "Can't I bask in the sun?" "Chu Hang, can you speak properly?" The parrot on his shoulder had gotten used to Chu Yang's appearance, all kinds of torment, and all kinds of clamoring. Thus, right now, it was incomparably unaccustomed to this and began to clamor. Ha ha. Below the stage, the crowd couldn't help but burst into laughter. They thought that it was only the bird that wasn't used to it, but they never thought that even the lousy bird wasn't used to it. Ha ha. Shangguan Lan and Ji Yinmeng couldn't help but laugh when they heard this. This broken bird was still the same as before, it hadn't changed at all. The atmosphere of the audience was slightly livened up. The parrot began to laugh wildly. It crossed its wings and cupped its fists. Then, it used Chu Yang's lines and said, "Waha, long time no see, everyone. I've missed you." It still felt that it was not enough, so it said, "Everyone, it's been a long time. Please give me a round of applause and sing praises to this divine bird." Everyone was speechless. Then, they realized that this was the rhythm. This rhythm was Chu Yang's rhythm. The rhythm was finally right. Is it here to steal the show? Luo Xiu pointed to the parrot and asked Chu Yang with a smile. Brother Luo, please forgive me. Chu Yang cupped his fists and said, it hasn't kept up with the pace of the times. It still doesn't know what low-key is. Unlike me, who has kept up with the times and is extremely low-key. Low-key? Chu Yang actually said that he was low-key. The audience's eyes widened like copper bells. They couldn't believe the words they heard. The parrot was also stunned. Chu Hang had seized the bridgehead of the word low-key so easily. In the future, Chu Hang and low-key would be tied together. Chapter 1799. Many people couldn't help but nod subconsciously. They agreed with his words and raised their feet to show their approval. However, many people were also very puzzled. They hadn't seen him for a while. Had Shameless Chu's shamelessness reached a new height? Had he reached a higher level of evil? Before Chu Yang spoke, the parrot said, how come I don't know about keeping a low profile? Ha ha, the parrot's puzzled expression instantly ignited the whole audience. Suddenly, there was a burst of laughter, and many people laughed until tears were about to come out. The combination of Chu Yang and the parrot was simply amazing, pushing the path of shamelessness to the peak one after another. Ha ha ha, keeping a low profile is my special term. Chu Hang, you have the nerve to steal it. The parrot's strange laughter was a bit too much, and the laughter of the audience disappeared. Chu Yang said with a smile, Brother Luo, why are you closing your eyes in peace? Are you going to die? Aren't you forcing me to burn incense for you to express my condolences? Luo Xiu said that he was going to die, which was true. When he was alive, he really didn't like to hear someone say that they would burn incense for him. Brother Chu, can you speak human language? Luo Xiu used the parrot's words and then said, I'm telling the truth. I'm now a mourning soldier. A mourning soldier is bound to win. Chu Yang said with a smile, Brother Luo, am I not telling the truth? Besides, why is it not speaking human language? I finally know why so many people want you to die. Luo Xiu almost gritted his teeth. Can you really make me angry? What's the situation? This is not right. Didn't they agree that Shameless Chu would strip Luo Xiu naked and hang him up to dry during the entrance examination of the Sky Academy? Therefore, Luo Xiu put on a show of bravery after being ashamed. He overtook Shameless Chu and wanted to avenge his shame with his cultivation. However, looking at the contact between the two of them, it was not the case at all. I see. Chu Yang cupped his hands to Luo Xiu and said, Brother Luo, my behavior is unreasonable. If I made you misunderstand or have a bad feeling just now, I'm deeply sorry. Here, I apologize to Brother Luo. Luo Xiu, he was truly speechless. The crowd was also shocked. This is Shameless Chu. The Shameless Chu from before. That bastard is actually apologizing. Boom. The audience was in an uproar. Did the sun rise from the west? How could Tyrant Chu apologize? This is truly inconceivable. Is this the Chu Bathuang that I know? I haven't seen Chu Baguang for a while. Could it be that he has changed his appearance? What are you thinking about? Shameless Chu is definitely up to no good. That's right. Don't be fooled by his serious, cultured, and courteous look. There will definitely be a shocking reversal later. Everyone, you have to keep your eyes open and watch carefully. This is definitely a classic example of shamelessness, as well as a classic case study. When Chu Yang heard everyone's words, he thought to himself, it seems that I was more unreasonable than I thought before. No, from now on, I really have to be a good person. In the arena, he immediately cupped his fists and said to the crowd, Everyone, I have been ignorant and rude in the past. Please forgive me. I am not far from the wrong path. I feel that the present is not the past. He continued, the past is unbearable to look back on. In the bright moon, the carved railings and jade walls should still be there, but one's nature has changed. How difficult is it to change one's nature? It's like a river flowing east. Chu Yang had originally planned to keep a low profile. However, after a few rounds, he accidentally revealed his overflowing talent, and his nature was undoubtedly exposed again. Waraha! The parrot laughed so hard that it fell off Chu Yang's shoulder. This was the fucking Chu Yang it knew. Haha. After a moment of astonishment, the audience could not help but burst into laughter. Shameless Chu was indeed still the same shameless Chu. He still said that he wanted to change his nature, but he was already shameless. Many people were already laughing like crazy. Luo Xiu also did not know whether to laugh or cry. It was really an impossible task to snatch some attention from Chu Yang. He had also completely given up. He did not need anyone to see his brilliance, and he did not need anyone to care about it. It was enough for him to care about it, he would only cheer for himself. Brother Chu, please. Chapter 1800. Please. Chu Yang also stretched out his hand. He was not afraid of Luo Xiu. He wanted to see how much trouble Luo Xiu could cause him. He would definitely not let Gong Sun Long succeed. If Gong Sun Long wanted to know his approximate strength, he would only reply with one word: wishful thinking. Although he was looking down on Luo Xiu, he did not care so much. On the arena, swords were drawn, but the atmosphere below the arena was very relaxed. Not many people thought that Luo Xiu could do anything to Chu Yang. Apart from the rumor that Luo Xiu had an old grudge with Chu Yang, there was another reason why Luo Xiu was doing this. Many people knew about it. This battle was just Gong Sun Long sending Luo Xiu to his death to test Chu Yang's strength. Many people knew what Gong Sun Long wanted. It was to let Chen Burang have a clear judgment of Chu Yang's strength, so that he could kill Chu Yang better. Of course, such a thing was tacit understanding. Swoosh. Chu Yang and Luo Xiu separated and stood on opposite sides of the arena. Bang! Before Luo Xiu could make a move, two clusters of flames shot out from his eyes. They leaped about and emitted greenish-black smoke. His long hair stood on end. His face suddenly turned green and distorted. He became extremely ugly, like a green-faced evil spirit. In the end, he grew fangs, his tongue became long, and there were barbs on it. Luo Xiu's entire body was also emitting dark green smoke. In an instant, he had become ugly and evil. It was as if an evil ghost had appeared out of thin air. Not only did it give Chu Yang a fright, it also gave everyone a big fright. At this moment, his aura also surged. As it surged, it was like a raging wave. A terrifying aura spread out and covered the entire arena. Chu Yang's eyes narrowed slightly. The opponent in front of him was similar to the geniuses of the god's world. He could not be underestimated. He was a little surprised. Luo Xiu's strength was not ordinary. Hiss. Many people below the stage sucked in a breath of cold air. Luo Xiu's change had clearly exceeded the imaginations of many people, causing them to be very shocked. Luo Xiu doesn't use a saber. I've never seen him change like this before. In other words, when Luo Xiu defeated those people earlier, he didn't utilize his true strength at all. This Luo Xiu concealed his strength so deeply, he's only stronger than those geniuses of the academy. If that's the case, I'm afraid that it will really be interesting. After all, Luo Xiu's strength is astonishing. All of a sudden, the atmosphere was completely different from before. Many people were looking forward to it, and some were even nervous as they watched the scene in the arena with rapt attention. At this moment, it was as if a hand had reached into everyone's hearts and pulled their heartstrings taut. If the beginning was like this, then what would happen later would be even more shocking. Not bad. After feeding the dog for so long, I've finally raised a fierce dog. Gong Sun Long looked at the changes in Luo Xiu from afar. It was as if he was looking at his own masterpiece. He was very satisfied, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curve into a proud smile. He said to himself, Chu Yang, are you surprised? This time, it should be enough to make you suffer. Chen Burang was also slightly surprised. He didn't have much hope, but at this moment, he had no choice but to completely change his mind and watch the battle seriously. Azura. Luo Xiu became ugly, and his voice became extremely unpleasant. It was sharp and ear-piercing. His appearance was like a wild beast that roared in a low voice when it was in danger. The voice roared these three words from his throat. Rumble. Chapter 1801. The sea was like a real thing. Raging waves swept across it, and the rumbling sound of water could be heard. It even brought along a huge wave of water vapor that engulfed the entire area. The huge mountains were also vivid and lifelike. Ancient towering trees, huge rocks, steep cliffs, birds and beasts. It made people feel as if they were in the middle of the mountains. It was as if they could feel the gentle mountain breeze blowing in the mountains at this moment. Azura Dharma idol? Chuyang narrowed his eyes slightly. He knew a lot about Azura. Azura, it's actually Azura. Luo Xiu's martial spirit is actually Azura martial spirit. No wonder he's called Luo Xiu. I think it must have something to do with his martial spirit. I wonder if his martial spirit is the Azura of the Hell Demon Clan or the Azura of the Buddha's 6 paths of reincarnation. The Azura Demon Clan was an extremely powerful clan of the Hell Demon Clan. They were born to fight and their fighting talent was almost unparalleled. The Azura of the Buddha's path was also very aggressive and incomparably powerful. It was also one of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Therefore, in the heavenly spirit world, the Azura martial spirit was divided into the Azura of the Demon Clan and the Azura of the Buddha's path. However, no matter which Azura martial spirit it was, it represented strength and astonishment. The Azura martial spirit was considered a superior martial spirit among the martial spirits. This Luo Xiu possesses the Azura martial spirit. He's clearly a genius among geniuses. He's definitely not weaker than the geniuses of our academy. Aren't you talking nonsense? Who would have thought that he actually possesses the Azura martial spirit? Hehe, I'm afraid that Shameless Chu is in trouble this time. He might even be beaten to death. Gong Sunlong heard everyone's astonishment and sneered, if he didn't possess the Azura martial spirit, I wouldn't have chosen him to be my dog. If it wasn't for me, how could this dog awaken the Azura martial spirit? He's not even a dog. Is it good to show your trump card at the beginning? Chuyang was not very worried. He would just use the earth weir to block soldiers with arms and water with soldiers. What's the use of those insignificant tricks against you? Only a trump card that can be used will not make me a laughingstock. Luo Xiu said in a muffled voice, I might die today. How can there be no waves at the beginning? Be careful. Rumble. The Azura Dharma form pulled up the mountain, raised it high above its head, and smashed it down on Chuyang. At the same time, the ocean that the Azura was standing on surged with giant waves. The rumbling sound was deafening and shook one's mind. The scene was so grand that it caused many people to become absent-minded. If it were them, they could only surrender when faced with such fear. They had no ability to deal with it at all. That's true. Chuyang agreed with Luo Xiu's words. If this was his last battle, the end of his life, he would make it resplendent no matter what. Wang. Chuyang's sleeves were fluttering in the wind. He casually pointed a finger. Starlight burst out and immediately condensed into a small star. It flew towards the mountain. As it flew, it kept expanding. Soon, it was even bigger than the mountain that the Azura was holding. The star martial spirit. Chuyang had pretended to be himself and called himself Eastern Wilderness 002. He had used it before, so he did not need to hide it at all. He completely ignored the endless waves that surged towards him, allowing them to crash into him. He was like a small boat bobbing up and down in the ocean, but he would not capsize no matter what. It looked simple, but without a strong physical body, how could one withstand the impact of such a huge force? Rumble. The star and the mountain collided in mid-air. The mountain cracked first and then collapsed. Huge rocks flew and dust soared into the sky. It fell from mid-air as if the real mountain had exploded. Fortunately, all of these turned into surging magic power halfway, sweeping in all directions. Bang! Luo Xiu's Azura Dharma form punched and completely shattered the star, making it look like a blooming firework. Chapter 1802. Many people knew that the quality of Chuyang's spiritual energy was frighteningly high, and that he was able to kill a Transcendence Realm martial artist when he was only at the spirit stage. However, they were still shocked to the extreme. This shouldn't be considered spiritual energy, but half-step to Transcendence Realm. Even so, it's still shocking. Who said it wasn't? This is Chu Yang. There's nothing strange about it. If it wasn't for this, I'd be surprised. Gong Sunlong, Chen Burang, and the others were not surprised by this. As for Liu Yunpeng, Xiong Longxiang, and the others, they were not shocked at all. If Chu Yang didn't have the ability, how could he humiliate them to the point that they wanted to die? I said that I will die. This is the truth, right? Haha. Luo Xiao was also shocked, but he was not surprised. He laughed loudly, as if what he said was absolutely correct. I said that you won't die. This is also the truth. When Chu Yang saw Luo Xiao's demeanor, the anger in his heart grew. Such an outstanding person was forced to such a state by Gong Sunlong. Therefore, he added, Gong Sunlong is a piece of shit. You need to take him seriously. Suddenly, the entire crowd was silent. Chu Yang had revealed the true nature of the matter, the true cause of the matter. As for Chu Yang's public contempt for Gong Sunlong and calling him a piece of shit, no one was surprised. Instead, they felt that this was the real Chu Yang. Chu Yang's arrogance, Chu Yang's pride, and Chu Yang's lawlessness were already seen by everyone. Even the more shocking ones were not taken seriously, let alone Gong Sunlong. Anyway, when Liu Yunpeng, Xia Wanjin, and Xiong Longxiang heard this, they felt slightly better. Even they did not take Gong Sunlong seriously, let alone Chu Yang. Although they had to admit that Gong Sunlong did have amazing talent and was not inferior to them, this did not prevent them from looking down on Gong Sunlong. Whoosh! Gong Sunlong's face suddenly changed. His face became sinister, and his eyes became extremely venomous. It was as if he could poison the entire world to death with a single glance. He stared coldly at Chu Yang without blinking, but did not say anything. Only you have the qualifications to say that, but I don't. Luo Xiao laughed bitterly in his heart. He also wanted to be as happy as Chu Yang, but even if he didn't care about himself, he still had to care about his family. He attacked again. The Azura Dharma idol took a step forward, and the world rumbled. The arena was incomparably huge. At this moment, the light of the array on it shone. It was obvious that the power was too great, exceeding the limit that the arena could withstand. As a result, the protective mechanism of the array was triggered. Peng! The Azura Dharma idol punched out. Its fist was wrapped in raging flames, as if it was filled with endless anger. As soon as it burst out, it changed people's moods. Many people were instantly enraged, jealous, and resentful. When they suddenly woke up, they couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. It was just a flame, but it silently made them lose their minds and changed their emotions. How amazing was Luo Xiao to be able to do this? The Azura Dharma idol was like a furious person. Its fist was fast and urgent, fierce and vicious. It was as if it wanted to shatter the world with one punch. It couldn't wait to destroy everything. The destructive aura that permeated from its body made people's hearts palpitate. Whoosh! Chu Yang calmly raised his hand, and a ray of light shot out. This, oh my God! How is this possible? Suddenly, an incredulous cry burst out from the world. Many people were stunned. After all, it was a cry of surprise. However, when they looked around, they didn't find anything at all. However, they soon understood that a god seemed to have fallen from the sky because he was too shocked. With a bang, he cut off the path of the Azura Dharma idol. It was actually Chu Yang's move that had let out a cry of shock. What made people feel even more amazed was that the god was also stunned. He was even petrified on the spot. He didn't resist the fierce attack of the Azura Dharma idol at all. However, the strange thing was that the Azura Dharma idol attacked directly, but it took 3 steps back. The flame that could easily make people angry couldn't hurt the god at all. What the hell was Shameless Chu doing? Chapter 1803. Divine Sword Art of Great Astonishment. This is the Divine Sword Art of Great Astonishment. Only when the Divine Sword Art of Great Astonishment has been cultivated to the perfection realm, the divine spirit that appears will be real and can exclaim. The Divine Sword Art of Great Astonishment was Sima Jian's sword art. Many people in the Sky Academy knew about it, so many people knew about the Divine Sword Art of Great Astonishment very well. However, Unlike before, the divine sword art of great astonishment displayed by Chu Yang this time was far more powerful than before. The reason for this was naturally because after the battle between Chu Yang and Xiao Qiuyu in the divine realm, Chu Yang had a great understanding of sword Dao and even had a clear direction of his own sword Dao. Today was different from the past. Today's Chu Yang was no longer the Chu Yang of yesterday. We haven't seen each other for a while. Not only did Shameless Chu suddenly improve by 9 small realms, he even cultivated the divine sword art of great astonishment to the perfection realm. In this way, isn't Shameless Chu also a genius in sword Dao? What kind of logic is that? It would be strange if he wasn't a genius in sword Dao. Anyway, just by using the sword art to make up for the lack of realms and block the Dharma idol, I can't find any other words to say, I can only kneel down to him. Naturally, people knew that Chu Yang was amazing, but they never expected that Chu Yang could block Luo Xiu's Dharma idol so easily, and it was the incomparably powerful Azura Dharma idol. Did you notice that Chu Yang hasn't even moved from the beginning until now? It's true. Hiss. When someone noticed this, the people instantly went into an uproar and couldn't calm down for a long time. Luo Xiu was almost stunned in the field. No matter how many times he heard about Chu Yang's strength, it was useless. Only when he experienced it personally could he understand that unfathomable and powerless. At this moment, he could only use one word to describe it: inhuman. It's just a small trick, after all, it's not good enough. In the face of real power, it's just a decoration. A disdainful voice suddenly came from the outermost circle, which shocked people. Who is so arrogant? How dare you be so presumptuous in front of Shameless Chu? Don't you know that Shameless Chu is also called Chu Kuangren? He instantly got the answer. It was Gong Sun Long, a follower behind Gong Sun Long. Everyone looked over and wondered if this was Gong Sun Long's idea. The servant smiled coldly and said, "Do you think I'm joking? That dog." He became even more rampant and directly ordered Luo Xiu, "You immediately use the second form of Azura and beat the wild dog to death." Everyone was shocked. He was just a servant, yet he dared to be so impudent. Luo Xiu's blood rushed to his face, and his entire body trembled. "Who do you think you are? How dare you act so arrogantly in front of me?" Chu Yang's expression turned cold as killing intent surged in his heart. He was enraged. He and Luo Xiu were having a great battle in the field. It was disrespectful for the people outside to interfere, but the other party actually spoke rudely. Chu Yang felt even more indignant for Luo Xiu. He even felt a sharp pain in his skin. Luo Xiu was not an unreasonable person. He was talented and was willing to work hard. Together with many hard-working and diligent people, he even reminded Chu Yang of himself who struggled in his past life. However, Luo Xiu was humiliated in such a way, which really made him angry. Just a small trick. He stared coldly at Gong Sun Long. "Is this your idea? Come, tell me what a small trick is, so that I'll feel so inferior that I want to cry." Waha! The parrot, who had been silent for a long time, poked Gong Sun Long with its wings and roared, "Hey! That lowly person is all talk and no action. Bring your balls and show them a few moves so that everyone can see how capable you are." Chapter 1804. Haha. Kui Xinhu and the other two couldn't help but burst into laughter. The parrot didn't have any skills and couldn't say anything, so it found Gong Sun Long to be its scapegoat. It even sold itself out, exposing its lack of intelligence. Their laughter made many people burst into laughter, but it was immediately interrupted by a roar. "How dare you? Chu Yang, who do you think you are? You think you can call him young Master Gong Sun? Who do you think you are? Look at yourself first. You won't even know how you died later. Even Qian Zi doesn't dare to do this. Wild dog, why do you dare to do this? Qian Zi." These were the members of the Chen Kuan party. Many people realized that they were scared to death. The whole place was silent, and the laughter could no longer be heard. Qian Zi's reputation was obvious. Qian Zi. Chu Yang heard this name again and thought to himself, "Is Gong Sun Long related to Qian Zi?" He didn't say anything, and neither did the parrot. "Wild dog, are you scared now? It's not too late to kneel down and apologize. Qianzi might let you be a dog. You don't know what's going on, and you only know your mistake now. Let me tell you, it's too late. Just wait to be skinned alive. The members of the Chenkuan party became more and more brazen. Chu Yang heard them, but he still didn't say anything. He couldn't be bothered to compete with who had the loudest voice, who was harsher, and who was more powerful. At least, he wasn't interested in that now. Therefore, he only set a limit in his heart. If he exceeded this limit, he would have to bear the consequences. Chu Yang's behavior was not the style of the Chu group. The members of the Chenkuan party became more brazen. Mph, that's all you got. A wild dog is a wild dog. You can't do much. Boom. Everyone's mind exploded. Could it be that even shameless Chu is afraid of Qianzi? At this moment, there was even more silence. Everyone in the Sky Academy had heard of Qianzi. Who didn't know him? Who wouldn't dare to offend or blaspheme him? Therefore, even shameless Chu wouldn't dare. Little bastard, when it's time for you to perform, is it appropriate for you not to show up? Kui Shinho's voice cut in and immediately became the center of attention. TSK. The parrot rolled its eyes and said in disdain, "Do you think this divine bird is stupid? How could this divine bird, a divine bird, be stained with filth and low-level things that bastard King Chu could not avoid? Pinching a smelly bug to death wouldn't make it so bad even if it stinked for half a day. Little Kui, get out of my sight. Little bitch, you must remember this. You are a bird, and you are specifically used to deal with insects." Bullshit. The parrot was flustered and exasperated. Little green jade, you are insulting this bird. Originally, it was a conflict between Chu Yang and the Chenkuan party, but the sudden change in focus caused many people to be confused. After a while, they finally understood. So this was the case. TSK, then you three playthings, the time has come when I need you. The parrot pointed its wing at Liu Yunpeng and the other two. Now is the time for you to show your true colors. Hurry up and move. Liu Yunpeng and the other two squinted their eyes. This damn bird understood that it wasn't little green jade and the other two. Damn it, what's wrong with you three playthings? You need to deal with people of this level. The parrot was filled with righteous indignation and said angrily, "At this time, you dare to make excuses for this divine bird? Are you itching for a beating again? Damn bird." Liu Yunpeng crossed his arms and squinted at it. He said solemnly, "I ask you to pay attention to my level. Can you be more careful?" Chapter 1805. Xia Wanjin, Xiong Longxiang, and Xiong Longxiang all looked down on the parrot, causing it to fly into a rage. It raised its neck and roared, "Ayo, you three are really going against the heavens. I asked you to clean up the trash and all of you actually acted like second masters. You even complained that it was dirty and smelly. However, this is your job, do you understand?" Flap flap. The parrot flew over and started to fight with the three of them. It scolded them while beating them up. It was really intense, even more so than Chu Yang and Luo Xiu. The parrot's antics caused everyone's expressions to be really interesting. Needless to say, their mood was even worse. Shameless Chu didn't even fart and he already looked down on the Chenkuan party and Qianzi. However, this was the Chenkuan party, Qianzi. Was this appropriate? Preposterous. You are all courting death. All of you deserve to die. The members of the Chenkuan party were all enraged. Chu Yang actually felt that paying attention to them was a form of humiliation to himself. Wild dog, you will regret today's arrogance for the rest of your life. No one dares to be so preposterous and arrogant like you. You are dead. You will definitely die. No one can save you. They were even more furious now. Chu Yang slightly restrained the anger in his heart. He raised his eyes and looked at them. You're all born from your own mothers and raised by your own fathers. I treat you as human beings with compassion and compassion. But, don't treat me as someone without a temper, understand? Hong. Everyone's mind exploded. Then, they thought to themselves, this is the real shameless Chu. Haha. The Chenkuan party members laughed. Wild dog, when did you have such a good temper? Previously, you killed people because of a disagreement. Now, you actually have compassion. What a joke. You are afraid of Qianzi but still want to act tough. You are just acting tough on the outside. Hypocrite, don't you know that you will only make yourself more laughable? Haha, wild dog, Wang. Just when this person from the Chenkuan party wanted to mock Chu Yang, he suddenly felt Chu Yang's cold gaze sweeping over. His killing intent gushed forth like tidal waves. This person was like a duck that was grabbed by the neck as he abruptly stopped speaking. Chu Yang didn't make a move, but just as he withdrew his killing intent. Wild dog, how dare you be so fierce? Kill. Why don't you try and kill one? When Qianzi returns, I want to see how you kneel and beg for mercy. I want to see how you die. He's scared to death of Qianzi. Why would he? Shua. A beam of black light swept over, instantly transforming into a crescent moon that was dyed black. It swept through all the members of the Chenkuan party, including Qianzi. How terrifying. It's too scary. A devil phantom appeared in the air as it let out a voice filled with shock. At this moment, it sounded extremely mocking. It was like Chu Yang was replying to the members of the Chenkuan party, saying that he was truly terrified after hearing Qianzi's name. Rumble. The void there trembled and a loud explosion echoed. Gong Sun Long blocked the black crescent moon with his palm. A line of blood appeared on his palm and then blood spurted out. He retreated more than a dozen steps in the air until he dodged the pressure of the devil shadow. He only managed to stop after dodging the pressure of the devil shadow. The rest of the members of the Chenkuan party either had their necks cut, were chopped in half, or were shattered by the devil phantom. Rumble. 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 Chen Burang's pupils shrunk when he saw the blade. His heart was filled with shock. Can you control your dog? Today's battle was originally arranged by you, but you came here to cause trouble. Rumor. Rumor. Are you crazy? Rumor. 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 Chapter 1806. It was fine if he was not angry, but once he was angry, the world would be turned upside down. Shameless Chu, this was Shameless Chu. His dignity could not be blasphemed or challenged. Chu Yang originally planned to kill Gong Sun Long after the battle with Luo Xiu, but he did not mind killing Gong Sun Long in advance. Facing such a challenge, Gong Sun Long did not say anything. His face was as calm as an ancient well, and he did not leave. At this moment, no one could tell whether he was happy or angry. Although you're not up to par, you're still decent. Although Chu Yang's words were full of contempt, he did not look down on Gong Sun Long. Someone who could cut off his brother's arm was definitely not weak. Gong Sun Long still did not say anything. He was still as calm as an ancient well. Chu Yang's gaze was calm. He did not say anything and said to Luo Xiu in the arena, "Brother Luo, please." At this moment, the crowd started to discuss. What was that saber skill? It was so powerful from such a distance. It should be the Demon of Astonishment saber skill. Shameless Chu evolved it from the Demon of Astonishment sword skill. He used it once before. Even if it was evolved from the Demon of Astonishment sword skill, its power shouldn't be so shocking, right? At such a distance, one slash could kill everyone except Gong Sun Long. That's right. The members of the Cosmos Party are arrogant, but they are definitely not weak. At such a distance, how could one slash have such terrifying power? Because that was Shameless Chu's saber skill. Such a reason immediately silenced all the discussions. It seemed that such a reason was enough. What could Shameless Chu not do? They did not understand, but they could not understand the profoundness behind it. That slash was actually the result of the fusion of the spirit and martial soul. The saber was darkness, and darkness was the saber. Chu Yang used the law of darkness to trigger the shadows of the Cosmos Party and turned them into a saber. That was why the power was so shocking. Everyone had a shadow, and the silent invasion of darkness was usually undetectable. Although it was controlled from a distance and was not powerful enough, its lethality was still shocking. During his trip to the realm of the gods, Chu Yang had gained a lot of insights into the laws. In that instant just now, he had only displayed a little bit of his brilliance. Who? Luo Xiu spent a lot of effort to calm down his shocked mood and let out a long breath of turbid air. Chu Yang's saber strike just now had truly frightened him. Previously, in the battle with Chu Yang, if Chu Yang had used such a saber technique, it would have been difficult for him to block it. Brother Chu, this is truly astonishing. Asura's second form. In the midst of Luo Xiu's roar, the original Asura Dharma form was immediately shrouded in a greenish-black smoke. With a series of loud bangs, the greenish-black smoke exploded one after another, revealing 9 ferocious heads. In the blink of an eye, the Asura's second form was revealed before everyone's eyes. It had 9 heads, 1,000 eyes on each head, 990 arms, and 8 legs. Among the 990 arms, there were 2 arms that held up the sun and the moon respectively. The rest of the arms were all incomparably huge, capable of blocking out the light of the sun and moon. This is the second form of Asura? Chu Yang was a little surprised. He could clearly feel that the second form of the Asura Dharma form was much stronger than the first form. If the first form was a sheep, then the second form would be a wolf. The second form of Asura was incomparably huge. With 988 arms spread out, they covered the sky and cast a huge shadow. To be precise, it formed a huge darkness, causing many people to be unable to see the sun in the sky. Chapter 1807. Dong. 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 Asura took a big step forward and closed in on Chu Yang. With every step he took, the ring, which was protected by a formation, was immediately crushed and collapsed. Countless dazzling rays of light burst out, and the huge ring shook violently, like a mountain that was about to collapse. At first, the Asura's speed was very slow, but it suddenly accelerated, and the airflow it stirred up immediately formed a hurricane that swept out. The huge Dharma form was like a greenish-black mountain that was being forcefully pushed forward, rumbling and crushing. Bang! 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 The arena began to explode. The materials on it kept flying out. Then, the entire arena collapsed. It was as if a mountain had collapsed and sunk into the ground. The water under the ground seemed to have rushed out at this moment. Bang! 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 Chu Yang stood in the air. His sleeves were flapped by the strong wind like a whip. There was a crisp sound. It's too big. It's not flexible enough. Its strength is not concentrated. If you give up too much, the gains will not make up for the losses. Chu Yang's voice was very clear in the loud noise. When it fell into the ears of the people, everyone knew that he was pointing out Luo Xiu's weakness. However, the so-called weakness was not a weakness at all in the eyes of the people. No matter how inflexible the Dharma form was, it was enough to deal with them. Brother Chu, it's not enough to just talk. If the truth can be understood just by talking, there won't be so many things in the world. Luo Xiu did not agree with Chu Yang's view. You're right. Chu Yang agreed with Luo Xiu's point of view. Kai. Kai. He stretched out his hand and flicked out 8 rays of light. Each of them took the 8 legs of the Asura Dharma form and slashed them horizontally. The 8 legs were like human legs. The rays of light flashed and disappeared. In an instant, the bloodlines on the 8 legs of the Asura burst out. Then, 8 deities appeared and exclaimed, "Bang! Bang! Bang!" All 8 of its legs were severed and exploded. With a loud boom, the huge Asura Dharma idol fell heavily to the ground, destroying the arena, which was already badly damaged, even more thoroughly. It was solved so easily. Luo Xiu was shocked. He was very stubborn, but the result was cruel. It's really too big. He let out a heavy sigh. The second form of the Asura Dharma power was something he was proud of. He never thought that it would be so weak. Because it was too big, it was easy for Chu Yang to attack it. Just now, even if he wanted to manipulate the Asura Dharma idol to dodge, there was no time to do so. Especially when facing a swordsman like Chu Yang, whose attacks were unparalleled, dealing with the huge Asura Dharma idol was like chopping down a giant tree with an axe. There was no pressure at all. Luo Xiu was enlightened, but he was not discouraged. Brother Chu, please take a look at my Asura Dharma form. What do you think of its third form? The earth shook violently as the Asura's Dharma idol was pulled out from the ground. It collapsed inwards and shrank into a huge meatball. Then, heads popped out from the meatball like bamboo shoots after the rain. In an instant, there were thousands of heads. The neck appeared. 2 shoulders appeared, as wide as the sea. The sea water was turbulent, as if it was carrying 2 oceans. 1,000 hands, 2 feet. The roar was like thunder, and the sound waves rushed to the 9 heavens and 10 lands. The roar made everyone's mind go blank in an instant. This was the 3rd form of the Asura. Compared with the 2nd form, it was much smaller. It was only 30 feet tall. The thousands of heads were dense, strange, and frightening. All of them burst out with cold eyes, as if 1,000 evil spirits were mixed together. Rumble. This was not the sound of thunder, but the roar of the Asura Dharma idol. Chapter 1808. My heavens! What kind of attack is this, Luo Xiao? It's just a roar, and it's like 1,000 lightning strikes. How can he block it? How can he block it? It's simply unimaginable. How can he block it? What a joke! If Shameless Chu was able to block such an attack, would he still be human? It's too terrifying. Just 1 sound wave is difficult to deal with, let alone 1,000 sound wave. If 1,000 sound waves are released in unison, then everything will be destroyed wherever they pass. Nothing will be able to survive. Many people felt their scalps go numb. They were extremely horrified. Such a terrifying method even caused many people to tremble in fear. They looked at the 1,000 sound waves as if they were facing a lightning tribulation. It was as if the heavens could not tolerate them and were completely enraged, determined to kill them. Chen Burang's body shook violently, and his eyes were filled with astonishment. He was completely shocked by such an attack. He had never thought that Luo Xiao could be so shocking. Humph! Gong Sunlong, who was far away, could not help but snort coldly. Chu Yang, do you think my attack is so easy to deal with? Even if I can't force you to use your trump card, I'll definitely be able to get a rough idea of your strength. He was very confident in this because even he had to be careful when facing Luo Xiao. Seeing this, Chu Yang revealed a look of astonishment. This attack was almost on par with the attack of the Sign of Light. For a moment, he did not know how to deal with it. It was not difficult to deal with it, but how to prevent Gong Sunlong from getting his way and prevent Chen Burang from seeing his strength was very difficult. I can only make a fuss about the shocking divine sword art and the shocking demon saber art. Sword and saber, light and darkness. He racked his brains and suddenly thought of the alternation between day and night. After day, it was night, and after night, it was day again. Light and darkness were always alternating, the alternation of light and darkness. Buzz. Finally, he was shocked, and a smile appeared on his face. He could not help but say, "Not bad." Chu Yang's voice wasn't very loud, but it still suppressed the rumbling sound and clearly entered everyone's ears. That kind of calmness, instantly made those fearful people feel as if they had found a backbone, and they were no longer panicking. Just not bad. Luo Xiao's voice, he was naturally unconvinced. Chu Yang didn't say anything. This not bad was directed at him, not at Luo Xiao, but there was no need to explain. With a hiss, he flicked his finger, and a beam of light burst out. This seemed to be the first light of dawn. Impossible, how is this possible? This can't be real. The deity's cries of surprise rang out again, but they only managed to block out 300 or so rays before vanishing completely. However, as soon as the deity disappeared, a demonic figure appeared. What is this? It's unbelievable. Oh my God, am I hallucinating? Exclamations of surprise and astonishment resounded in the hearts of everyone present. It was as if they were voicing the thoughts in everyone's heart. How is this possible? How is this possible? After the astounding divine sword technique was destroyed, the astounding demonic saber technique actually burst out. People couldn't believe it. They really felt that it was like a dream, and it felt very unreal. This was like painstakingly destroying a divine sword, but giving birth to a demonic saber. How could there be such a logic in the world, and how could there be such an unimaginable thing? However, the shocking thing was behind. After the astounding demonic saber technique cancelled out another 300 or so sound waves, the astounding divine sword technique actually burst out again. The deity that appeared cancelled out another 300 or so sound waves. When the astounding demonic saber technique appeared again, Luo Xiu's shocking attack was completely wiped out. The sword technique and saber technique switched and connected smoothly like moving clouds and flowing water, wonderful to the extreme. Sword technique and saber technique, you live and I die, and so on, never stopping. It was miraculous and could not be described with words. Luo Xiu was dumbfounded on the spot. The sharp saber energy swept over and cut a line of blood on his face. It was like a soft willow branch being blown by the spring breeze. It gently swept over, and it was slightly itchy. In the collapsed arena and the messy battlefield, some soil rustled and fell into the deep pit. They moved quietly, as if they were afraid of disturbing something. In the distance, Gong Sun Long was reluctant to leave. His eyes were unfocused, as if he was staring in the direction where his beloved woman had left. He seemed to be in deep sorrow, and he seemed to be thinking hard about what he had done wrong and why his beloved woman had left him. Chapter 1809. Sure enough, I was telling the truth. After a long time, Luo Xiu regained his composure and said this sentence. Many people understood, but there were also many people who did not. Gong Sun Long understood, Chen Burang understood Luo Xiu would definitely die. Therefore, what Luo Xiu had said before was naturally the truth. When he said that he would definitely die today, it was indeed the truth. At this moment, even Gong Sun Long and Chen Burang were unable to refute him. Sigh, this Luo Xiu is truly pitiful. Some people were already feeling sorry for Luo Xiu and sighing endlessly. He is indeed worthy of sympathy, but to be able to die in the hands of Chu Wuxian, it's not an ugly death. Although many of those who died at the hands of Chu Wuxian were unworthy, how could those people compare to Luo Xiu? After Luo Xiu's death, when people think of him again, they will definitely recall the scenes of today. They will definitely remember Chu Wuxian's godlike and peerless sword technique. That's right, the first time Chu Wuxian used such a sword technique, Luo Xiu died, and such a sword technique became his epitaph, telling everyone that he died under such an unimaginable sword technique, and that he died a worthy death. Luo Xiu was an opponent, and a good one at that. At the very least, Luo Xiu's coercion had allowed Chu Yang to have a breakthrough, allowing him to have a deeper understanding of light and darkness. However, he did not like dejected opponents, he only liked dejected opponents. Opponent and opponent were only two words apart, but to Chu Yang, the difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. This was just like the difference between Luo Xiu and Gong Sun Long. What I said is also the truth. Chu Yang's voice was still not very loud, but it was incomparably certain. If Gong Sun Long wanted Luo Xiu to die, then he wanted Luo Xiu to not die. Haha. Luo Xiu couldn't help but laugh out loud. In that case, I should be happy. You should be happy. It's a bit early for me to be happy. It's not early at all. Chu Yang's every word was extremely domineering. Those who understood the conversation between him and Luo Xiu couldn't help but feel apprehensive. They were even more impressed. Gong Sun Long, I won't let you have your way. Moreover, I'll let you know what you, Gong Sun Long, can do. Then shouldn't I be thanking you? Thank me? Chu Yang suddenly laughed. Wait, I'm afraid you'll want to tear me to shreds. Luo Xiu also did not understand, but he did not need to understand, a dead person did not need to understand. With a clanging sound, Luo Xiu pulled out the saber in his hand. The azure saber in his hand shone with a dark red sharp saber light. It was as if the moment the saber was unsheathed, it had already cut open Shu Kong's flesh and blood splattered out. The sharp dark red saber gleam was like a splatter of blood. When it fell into the eyes of the crowd, it made them feel as if the blood had splashed onto their faces. Their pupils suddenly shrank, and they were extremely shocked in their hearts. What a terrifying saber! Azure blade, is this the azure blade? Luo Xiu has finally made his move. He is most proficient in saber techniques. Shameless Chu's sword, Luo Xiu's saber. I'm afraid this will be even more breathtaking. I have to admit, even though I know that the winner will definitely be Shameless Chu, but now I am still shocked, and fear is born in my heart. This Luo Xiu is not an ordinary person after all, but it's a pity that he met Shameless Chu. Perhaps, Being born in the same era as shameless Chu is the most lamentable thing in itself. Among the crowd, there were even more people who felt sorry for Luo Xiu, and were even more amazed by Chu Yang's extraordinariness. It was as if Chu Yang was the emperor of their era, and had already controlled all directions and was the only one who reigned supreme. With a clang, Chu Yang also pulled out his contradictory sword, a pitch-black contradictory sword. Chapter 1810. Good Sword. Luo Xiu only glanced at it. He didn't know much about Chu Yang's sword, so he couldn't help but blurt out. That was because he instantly noticed the extraordinariness of this sword. Needless to say, a sword that could become Chu Yang's sword would definitely not be bad. What sword is this? Not to mention Chen Burang and Gong Sunlong, who were eager to know Chu Yang's strength. Even Liu Yunpeng, Xia Wanjin, and Xiong Longxiang were shocked and extremely concerned. Kui Xinhu, Hao Haodong, Oyu Lajing, and the parrot were no exception. They hadn't seen Chu Yang for a while, and Chu Yang had changed too much. He actually had an excellent sword. This is not only a good sword, but also a good saber. As Chu Yang spoke, the contradictory sword in his hand shone with a sharp light, causing people to lose their vision instantly. When people saw this sword again, it had actually turned into a saber. It was no longer a sword, but a miraculous saber. But the similarity was that whether it was a sword or a saber, they were all black. If it was a sword, it would definitely be a good sword, and if it was a saber, it would definitely be a good saber. Everyone was shocked again. Such a divine weapon that could change its form was definitely an enviable weapon. And Chu Yang said that this was a good sword and a good saber. He was definitely not bragging. Chen Burang and Gong Sunlong's pupils couldn't help but shrink. Luo Xiu's tiger eyes also revealed a look of surprise. Is this a sword or a saber? Chu Yang smiled slightly. A sword is a saber, and a saber is a sword. Sabers and swords have never differentiated themselves. It's just that you guys forcibly made a distinction between them. Such a novel point of view, to understand sabers and swords from the perspective of sabers and swords, made Luo Xiu's heart shrink fiercely. In Chu Yang's hands, sabers and swords were no longer inanimate object. Chu Yang had already regarded sabers and swords as people, living people. I want to refute, but I have to admit that what you said is right. Luo Xiu gently stroked the blade of the Luo Xiu saber and muttered to himself, perhaps this Luo Xiu saber of mine is called a sword. Its name is saber, not sword. When Chu Yang opened his mouth again, Luo Xiu was almost stunned. Chu Yang's two statements kept colliding in his mind. They were very contradictory, but he couldn't say that either one was wrong. This was because every sword and every saber was different. Just like humans, although they were all humans, their personalities were different. Therefore, a saber was a saber, and a sword was a sword. Luo Xiu's heart sank. Chu Yang's comprehension of the saber and sword sounded extremely novel. However, when one thought about it carefully, this novelty caused one to tremble in fear. Only those who had sufficient understanding of the sword and saber could come up with such a novel idea. The reason why Chu Yang's ideas were novel was because he observed the sword and the saber from an angle that many people had not discovered. Furthermore, he comprehended the sword and the saber from such an angle. He had already jumped out of the understanding of his predecessors. No, I'm afraid that the predecessors have already comprehended this principle. Chu Yang had only reached such a height, but he had not. That was why he felt that it was novel when he heard it. I'm inferior. Luo Xiu let out a long sigh in his heart. He originally thought that in the way of the saber, he would definitely not lose to Chu Yang. However, even the saber technique that he was most proficient in was actually inferior to Chu Yang. Compared to Chu Yang, he was completely useless. One could imagine the feeling in his heart. Your saber should have grown with you. I'm not wrong, right? Luo Xiu was forcefully finding an advantage for himself. Chapter 1811. Clang, clang, clang. The black long blade in Chu Yang's hand trembled slightly, as if it was emitting a joyous sound, causing everyone to be even more alarmed, the sound of a divine weapon resonating with its master. Clang, clang, clang. The long blade in Luo Xiu's hand also trembled slightly, as if it was responding to the opponent's provocation. My Azura blade is at the Nirvana realm. Swish, a dark red blade light burst out. Luo Xiu held the Azura blade and pointed it at Chu Yang. Your blade is inferior to mine. Chu Yang did not leave Luo Xiu any leeway, nor did he leave any hope for Luo Xiu. He said bluntly, you are inferior to me, so your blade is naturally inferior to mine. Swish. The spirit that Luo Xiu had just released disappeared without a trace in an instant. Not to mention the blade in his hand, even if the blade in Chu Yang's hand was inferior to Luo Xiu's, his blade was still inferior to Chu Yang's. Divine weapons in different hands had completely different results, which could be said to be the difference between heaven and earth. It was the same for the blade. No matter how good the blade was, if it fell into the hands of someone who did not understand the blade, it would only be covered in dust. Luo Xiu discovered once again that he was crushed by Chu Yang in all aspects. The despair in his heart increased, but his aura became even sharper. Just like what he said, he was a desperate soldier. Let me take a look at your blade. You've already seen it just now. Then I'll let you take a look at my blade. Luo Xiu let out a long howl, his long hair fluttering in the wind. Because he used the Azura martial spirit, his face had become incomparably ugly, but at this moment, all of the ugliness had disappeared. His entire person had become incomparably elegant, like an unyielding general, and even more like a warrior who was unafraid of death. If a man seeks death on the battlefield, why would he need to bury his body in battle? Luo Xiu's aura was tragic and heroic. When his aura rose to the peak, he slashed out with his blade, not a ghost. Hee hee. As soon as the blade appeared, it was as if the underworld had been sliced open. Ghostly fog suddenly surged out and dyed the void black. The surrounding temperature plummeted rapidly, seemingly caused by the appearance of endless yin spirits. With a single slash, 100 ghosts appeared in the night. Their stomachs were bloated, and wherever they passed, they were like locusts, devouring everything. Every single one of them was a hungry ghost. The hungry ghost path of the 6 paths of reincarnation? Chu Yang's eyes narrowed slightly. Luo Xiu's saber move seemed to be the 6 paths of reincarnation saber technique, but it also seemed to not be. However, it had the power of the hungry ghost Dao, one of the 6 paths. However, in an instant, he completely understood. Shura belonged to the Azura path of the 6 paths. Shura didn't have the benevolence of the heavenly path, and it was similar to the ghost realm. However, if one said that it was a demon ghost, it had the power of a god. If one said that it was a human, although it had the 7 emotions and 6 desires of a human, it had the power of a god and a demon ghost. Therefore, it was a monster that was neither a god, a ghost, nor a human. It was a monster that existed between gods, ghosts, and humans. This saber move that wasn't a ghost was obviously one of Luo Xiu's understandings of Shura. With the help of the Shura martial spirit, it activated the power of the hungry ghost path. Shura had the blessings of a celestial being, but it didn't have the virtues of a celestial being. The main problem was hatred. Zen Buddhism once said that the heart is the Buddha. Therefore, the Shura path was in everyone's heart. Dharma Huaxian Yi, Shiluan Yun, there is no other way in the 3 realms, only the heart can do it. The heart can go to hell, the heart can go to heaven, the heart can go to the mortal, the heart can go to the sage. The Azura described in the Buddhist scriptures was the reincarnation of the heart of arrogance, the heart of hatred. Hatred. Chu Yang immediately thought of the 3 impurities mentioned in the Buddhist scriptures: greed, hatred, and foolishness. Chapter 1812. Not a ghost, I'm afraid it's just one of Luo Xiu's moves. Azura is not a ghost, not a human, not a god. There should be other moves that are not human, not god, or even more terrifying. If I can't win with strength, I can only win with skill. For a moment, Chu Yang's thoughts flashed. He made up his mind to not let Gong Sun Long succeed. He couldn't unleash his true strength at this moment. Of course, he didn't want to waste all his previous efforts. However, to be honest, he wasn't confident in dealing with Luo Xiu's later moves. He really wanted to save face. Azura is the reincarnation of arrogance and hatred. Then, I'll use the 3 poisons of greed, aversion, and obsession. Hungry ghost path. In the past, he was greedy and deceived others. Due to this reason, he fell into the hungry ghost path. Hungry ghosts can never run away, just like greedy desires. The hungry ghost path can barely correspond with the poison of greed, aversion, and obsession. The light in Chu Yang's eyes grew brighter and brighter. Luo Xiu had the Azura martial soul, but he also had Azura in his heart. Luo Xiu could use the power of the hungry ghost path, and he had the reincarnation divine ability. Luo Xiu was Azura, so he was Buddha. Greed. Chu Yang spat out a word and slashed with the contradictory blade in his hand. In an instant, it seemed like he had poured out all the greed in his heart. Amitabha. At the same time, along with the slash, a Buddhist chant resounded through heaven and earth. A Buddha appeared on the blade. It seemed like Mahamayuri, but it also seemed like it wasn't Mahamayuri. Tens of thousands of golden rays welcomed the ghosts. One slash contained 2 intense, endless greed and the Buddhist precepts of wisdom. Precepts could eliminate greed. Precepts could create steadfastness, and one's steadfastness would be deep. Greed would not be aroused, and one's steadfastness would be improved. Anger would be eliminated, wisdom would be revealed, and foolishness would be removed. Chu Yang already had a certain level of understanding of Buddhism. Previously, he had used the fragrant elephant to cross the river and cut off the flow of the masses as examples. At this moment, he unleashed the dual intents with his saber. The 2 slash wheels, one inside and one outside, were like 2 reincarnations. The outer slash wheel represented greed, and the inner slash wheel represented precepts of wisdom. Screech. As if they had encountered an enemy, the group of ghosts let out horrifying screams together. They also transformed into a spinning wheel made of ghostly mist, which looked like the Tao of hungry ghosts in the 6 paths of reincarnation. Clang. Clang. When the 2 met, it was as if 2 large blades were continuously hacking at each other. Waves of metallic sounds rang out and sparks flew in all directions. When the golden Buddhist light and the ghostly mist met, they were like fire and water. With sizzling sounds, they formed a rolling white mist that submerged that area. Dang! Chu Yang was like a single person's greed, unable to fight against the greed of many people. Luo Xiu's blade will cut open the first blade wheel and faced the second blade wheel. Abstain from wisdom, eliminate the 3 poisons of greed, aversion, and obsession. The second blade wheel was like an eminent monk of the righteous Tao, untainted by the 3 poisons and 3 impurities. The moment Luo Xiu's blade wheel came into contact with it, it was directly cut apart. With a clang, it was like a large blade falling to the ground and exploding with a loud bang. The ghosts screamed as if they were on the verge of death. The screams of the ghosts reverberated in everyone's ears. Not only did everyone feel cold, but they also felt extreme pain. It was as if their eardrums had been pierced. Following the final screams of the ghosts, all the ghostly qi disappeared. The surrounding temperature returned to normal. Under the golden Buddhist light, everyone felt warm. I'm not bad. I wonder if this counts as creating my own blade technique. Chu Yang couldn't help but smile. As he didn't want Gong Sun Long to succeed, he didn't reveal his true strength. He actually had a breakthrough in the battle with Luo Xiu. Chapter 1813. Hehe, it seems that keeping a low profile is a great thing. My decision is really very wise. I must continue to carry forward and keep a low profile, so low that it can't get any lower. The more he thought about it, the happier he was. Perhaps Gong Sun Long would never have thought of this. Inhuman. Chu Yang was able to block it, but Luo Xiu was already prepared. He immediately slashed out a second time. Even so, his heart was still trembling incessantly. Chu Yang had blocked it a little too easily, and this was really his last trump card, his strongest killing move, which could even draw upon the power of the 6 paths. A blade wheel was formed again, but this time it was wrapped in the world of mortals. Inside it, there were many living beings and their various forms: love, hatred, joy, anger, sorrow, and joy. 7 emotions and 7 desires were all presented, completely triggering the human path of the 6 paths. The second slash is inhuman. then the next slash will definitely be inhuman. Chu Yang was naturally not surprised. With a clang, the contradictory blade in his hand slashed out again. Anger. There was not much difference between this slash and his previous slash. The same Buddha head appeared, the same Buddha light shone, and the same two blade wheels. What was different was that between the two blade wheels, the inner blade wheel still represented wisdom, while the outer blade wheel represented anger and poison. Clang. Clang. The result was similar to the previous one. The outer blade wheel was destroyed, but the inner blade wheel easily blocked Luo Xiu's blade technique. Inhuman. One blade after another, Luo Xiu slashed out 3 times in an instant. After that, he withdrew his blade and stood still, no longer attacking. He had already used all his means, so it was useless to attack again. Buzz. 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 This slash of the inhuman had reached the peak of Luo Xiu's blade technique. The blade wheel buzzed and burst out with incomparably sacred light. There was also endless joy, happiness, and all kinds of bliss bursting out. It was as if this was the blade wheel of joy, happiness, and bliss. Under the illumination of the divine light, everyone present felt as if they had entered the heavenly Tao from the Tao of man. They enjoyed the endless blessings and smiles appeared on their faces. The power of the heavenly path, the head of the 6 paths, was completely drawn out. The blade seemed to be the heavenly path of the 6 paths. It rumbled towards Chu Yang. Good timing, idiot. Chu Yang's saber of contradiction moved again. With a swing of his saber, it was as if he had thrown out all his stupidity. Immediately, the greed and anger poisons appeared. The 3 poisons were present. Among the 3 poisons, the intoxication poison was the most severe. Once the poison of infatuation arose, the poison of greed and poison of resentment would naturally arise. What is idiocy? According to the theory of total sacrifice, an idiot is an idiot and ignorant. It meant that one's mind was dark and ignorant. Ignorance was bound to lead to mistakes. Greed and anger would naturally arise. Therefore, once the obsession poison appeared, the greed poison and anger poison naturally appeared as well. When the 3 poisons came out together, they formed 3 knife wheels. Jie Dinghui originally only had 1 knife wheel, but as they were the antidote to the 3 poisons, they correspondingly transformed into 3 knife wheels. Buzz. 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 The violent rotation produced violent vibrations. The incomparably sharp knife Qi not only cut through and destroyed everything, but also polluted everything. As soon as it came into contact with the blade wheel formed by Luo Xiu and Inhuman, the sacred light on it was immediately contaminated. It was no longer sacred and the light instantly weakened. It was faintly about to fall into turbidity and be completely obscured. Clang. 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 When the knife wheels met, the center of Luo Xiu's knife wheel burst out with the light of joy. It blocked the 3 poisons and broke through the inhuman poison knife wheel, the greed knife wheel, and the anger knife wheel. It was like a confrontation between justice and evil. In the end, evil could not defeat justice. Justice finally defeated evil and destroyed the 3 knife wheels, but it consumed a lot of energy. Chapter 1814. Luo Xiu did not attack again, and neither did Chu Yang. The battle had come to an end. You used the 3 poisons of greed, aversion, and obsession against my non-ghost, non-human, and non-god. Even the Shura could not defeat the aversion poison, which is why it is called the Shura. With the 3 poisons, how could I be your opponent? Luo Xiu admitted that he had failed completely. He couldn't do anything to Chu Yang at all. He sighed incomparably. There is also the precept of wisdom, Chu Yang added. Since Luo Xiu had lost, he naturally wanted to let Luo Xiu understand why he had lost. Yes. Luo Xiu nodded. There is also the precept of wisdom, which can cure the 3 poisons of greed, aversion, and obsession. I am just an Shura, how could I not lose? Not just anyone's Shura can trigger the power of the hungry ghost path, human path, and heaven path. At least, you are the first person I have met who can trigger the power of 3 paths out of the 6 paths. Chu Yang was telling the truth. Luo Xiu had cultivated the saber technique with the Shura martial soul, and it was indeed amazing. If he did not have the reincarnation divine ability, he would be more cautious. Haha. When Luo Xiu heard Chu Yang's words, he could not help but laugh, and a touch of pride appeared on his face. How many people in the East Continent can get your approval? Even if I, Luo Xiu, die now, I will not have wasted my next life. Come on, give me a quick death. Haha. Chu Yang was flattered to the point that he was overjoyed. He immediately laughed heartily. I also said that you won't die. If I say you will not die, you will not die. He stopped laughing and looked at Gong Sun Long in the distance. His expression was cold as he said, "What do you think? Did you see anything from me? Are you satisfied with what I did? How do you feel? Can you share with everyone what you are feeling now?" Boom. The entire place was in an uproar, but it soon quieted down. From the beginning to the end, Chu Wuxian's opponent had never been Luo Xiu, but Gong Sun Long. As for Chu Yang's mocking words, they were also shocked. Gong Sun Long wanted to see how capable Chu Yang was, but Chu Yang refused to let Gong Sun Long succeed. And in the end, he seemed to have succeeded. When he dealt with Luo Xiu, especially at the end, it could be said that he had completely won with wisdom, and won with skill. It truly had a feeling of breaking through the heavens with skill. With such a response, other than seeing Chu Yang's astonishing saber and sword techniques, as well as his shocking talent and comprehension ability, what else could he see? Chu Yang's talent was astounding. This had long been proven, and today was just another proof. His proficiency in swordsmanship had long been known, and this was just another step forward. If it was exposed, then it would be his bladesmanship that would be exposed. But other than that, what else could he see? No one knew, because perhaps this was enough for Gong Sun Long. Therefore, at this moment, everyone couldn't help but look at Gong Sun Long. Gong Sun Long had the best answer. Gong Sun Long didn't open his mouth, but his face had a constipated expression, as if his anger and frustration had been blocked, and he couldn't poop out. His entire face was red, and his neck was thick, and the protruding blood vessels and meridians were clearly visible. There was no doubt about his mood, but it was still too rough. Gong Sun Long's mood at this moment must be wonderful and incomparably wonderful, because his opponent was Chu Yang. Of Chu Yang's opponents, which one of them wasn't angry to the point of stomping their feet and cursing at him? Which one of them wasn't humiliated to death by him, losing all their face, and living a life worse than death? Without mentioning anything else, Chu Yang's mocking words just now, "Are you satisfied? How do you feel? Can you share with everyone how you are feeling now?" These words were enough to ridicule and provoke people. Gong Sun Long was probably no exception, but unfortunately, no one knew what his specific mood was. Besides, Gong Sun Long didn't say anything, but people had already confirmed the answer. Gong Sun Long hadn't achieved his goal in this battle, and he definitely hadn't obtained everything he wanted. Chapter 18:15. Can I share with you how I feel right now? Gong Sun Long did not say anything, but Chu Yang did. I know that someone has a good plan, so I will not let him have his way. I am trying to keep a low profile. I did not expect that my opponent would be so extraordinary. Under the pressure, he was enlightened. Now, I am so happy that I want to hum. You were conquered by me just like that. Everyone was speechless. Shameless Chu, you are so low profile. You're going to be conquered by me just like that. Such words, such provocation, it was only a matter of time before Gong Sun Long's pride was cut into pieces. You are indeed out of my expectations, but this is nothing more than a casual move on my part. Gong Sun Long finally spoke, but it was only a simple sentence, and then he closed his mouth tightly. He looked like he was constipated, and the exposed blue veins on his neck disappeared. His expression was calm, no different from before, but his eyes were a little cold. Are you trying to explain? Chu Yang smirked. Very well, I will make you kneel and sing conquer later. Interesting. Gong Sun Long only said 3 words, but his eyes became colder, but he was still able to remain calm. Of course it is interesting. Thud. 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 Chu Yang had an evil smile on his face. He walked in the void and covered a large distance with each step. It was as if he had the ability to shrink the ground. However, before he took 3 steps, He was only a few dozen meters away from Gong Sun Long. I will cut off your head and use it as a chamber pot. Do you think it is not interesting? No one has ever used their head as a chamber pot. I think I will be the first. The smile on his face became even more evil. Although I am looking down on the ancients, I have no choice. Who asked your head to look like a chamber pot? If you want to fight, I can fulfill your wish. Gong Sun Long was not a pushover. He was still a little angry, and he could not control himself. His voice was as cold as ice, and it was so cold that it seemed to be able to freeze the world. The revenge of the cane farmers is from morning till night. Didn't I learn it from you? Chu Yang dragged his sword in the void casually. The smile on his face became more and more playful, and he was getting closer and closer to Gong Sun Long Shua. A silhouette flashed, and blocked Chu Yang's path. It was an excessively exquisite face of a man, and he was dressed in white clothes. Chu Yang's eyes were imprinted on it. Chu Yang, your opponent is me, the handsome Chen Burang, who was like a pear blossom pressing down on a begonia. The gigolo Chen Burang. He was obviously unhappy. Chu Yang had already agreed to fight with him, but now he was going to fight with Gong Sun Long. This was no different from looking down on him. Don't you like to watch a play? Go to the side and watch the play. Chen Burang didn't step aside. Instead, he frowned. Is there anything wrong with what I said? Chu Yang smiled. Things are going on. Is it appropriate for you to intervene? Chen Burang was not a fool. He naturally understood what Chu Yang meant. Chu Yang had to deal with Luo Xiu's matter. If he, Chen Burang, was unhappy, he should have been unhappy before and not now. I didn't know before. You can pretend that you don't know now. What if I insist? Chen Burang was angry. Are you sure? Chu Yang smiled evilly, and it was a little strange. He looked at Chen Burang like that. Chen Burang's heart skipped a beat for no reason, but he immediately calmed down. So what if Chu Yang was angry? He, Chen Burang, had nothing to fear. Do you think I am joking? Do you think I am joking? Chapter 1816. Good, good, good. Chen Burang was so angry that he laughed. Then I'd like to see how you're not joking. Then you'd better stand properly. Chu Yang sneered. The atmosphere became even more tense. Just as everyone was waiting for Chu Yang to make trouble, he suddenly shouted at Shangguan Lan, Lan Lan, someone is bullying your husband. Plop. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, a large number of people fell down in the field. Many people were shocked by Chu Yang. They were charred on the outside and tender on the inside. Goosebumps rose all over their bodies. They were almost disgusted. But they were also thoroughly shocked. Who would have thought that shameless Chu would flip out like this? At this moment, Chen Burang's body trembled violently. Then, he directly froze. It was as if he had been petrified. He was like a drowning person who fell from the sky. Damn bastard, #yuan %#yuan. He could not help but curse in his heart. The crowd was filled with cries of crying for their parents. Oh, my waist, I sprained it. Ha, my stomach, ha. Shameless Chu is indeed shameless Chu. He's so good at it, ha. The next moment, after a great shock, everyone laughed like crazy. The whole place burst into laughter. They laughed so hard that they swayed back and forth and rolled on the ground. Ha, this is so funny. Anyway, the parrot was rolling on the ground laughing. It was about to go crazy. Liu Yunpeng, Xia Wanjin, and Xiong Longxiang were all speechless. If Chu Yang did that to them, they would probably go crazy. As another important figure in the joke, Shangguan Lan's head was buried in her chest like an ostrich burying its head in the sand. She was too ashamed to face anyone. Okay. Ji Yinmeng's heart was pounding. She secretly rejoiced that Chu Yang was so shameless that he did not call her. However, in an instant, she was jealous of Shangguan Lan. Her mood was very complicated. Murder. Chu Yang was not done yet. He howled like a wolf again. With a frightened look, he shouted, Gigolo is so scary. Lan, your husband is going to be killed. Hurry up and save your husband's life. Shangguan Lan really wanted to spit at Chu Yang and beat him up. She hated Chen Burang to the extreme. If it weren't for Chen Burang, such a thing wouldn't have happened. Chen Burang's face darkened as he trembled in anger. He really couldn't understand what this thing was. Relying on a woman to stand up for him, how could he still have any face? Why didn't he have any sense of shame? You, Lan Lan. As soon as Chen Burang spat out a word, he suddenly heard Chu Yang shouting Shangguan Lan's name. He was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He was completely injured. Previously, Shangguan Lan had already warned Chen Burang, and Shangguan Lan was stronger than him. If Shangguan Lan really attacked, Chen Burang would have no place to cry. Although the two families knew each other, to be exact, they were family friends. Gigolo, now that you know how powerful my wife is, do you still dare to bully me? When Chu Yang spoke again, Chen Burang really wanted to spit out a mouthful of blood. Damn it, who was the one bullying who? Suddenly, Chen Burang saw Shangguan Lan's murderous gaze sweeping over. Although he didn't know if it was a warning to Chu Yang or him, he immediately slipped away. Ah! Chapter 1817. Ouch! Chu Yang immediately rolled up his sleeves and shouted, "That thing, my wife is virtuous, beautiful and kind-hearted. She let you go, but you still dare to threaten her husband. You really think that my wife doesn't dare to teach you a lesson, Gigolo? Stop right there." Chen Burang, who had flown far away, suddenly froze in mid-air. Then, he lost control of his body and fell down. There was a muffled sound, and it was obvious that Chen Burang had made intimate contact with the ground. "Gigolo, you have a good face. Is it appropriate for you to forcibly molest a good girl like Lady Terror?" Chu Yang still felt that it wasn't enough. He immediately added, "That's not enough. You actually forced yourself on her. I can already hear the sobbing sound of Miss Earth. You heartless beast. You're even worse than a pig or a dog." Boom. There was a loud noise, and everyone seemed to see Chen Burang's furious face at this moment. "Gigolo!" Chu Yang roared again, "Let's not talk about how you forced yourself on Miss Earth. Now that she's married to you and has given birth to a child for you, you actually hit a woman. You. I really don't know how to describe you. I can't even find an adjective to describe you in my rich vocabulary." Everyone was once again completely shocked by Chu Yang's amazing talent. In addition, this development was so fast. Chen Burang had just molested Lady Terror, and Chen Burang and Lady Terror were already married and had a child. Time was so mysterious. In such a short period of time, so many things could happen. The child was already grown up. Many people couldn't help but wipe their sweat. Shameless Chu was too heartless. "Hehe, little guy, you're so funny." Chu Yang was laughing in his heart. Just these words could make Chen Burang react so violently. He felt that the people in this world were too cute and easy to bully. "Gigolo, I'm just joking with you. Do you have to be so angry?" Chu Yang added, "Wait, when we get home, don't tell your mother. I'm afraid she'll take out a pig's knife and chop me up." Chen Burang was completely silent. He seemed to have fainted from anger. "Waha, Chu Hang, you're good, you're really good." The parrot laughed crazily again, rolling on the ground. With Chu Hang around, it really wasn't lonely. "I was just fighting with this kind of Chu Yang, this kind of opponent." At this moment, Luo Xiu also broke out in cold sweat. He also realized that Chu Yang was simply too polite to him just now. He couldn't be any more polite. If Chu Yang were to go overboard, it would be even more unacceptable than if his entire family were to be killed. Gong Sunlong, who had long been ignored by Chu Yang, had a gloomy expression on his face. He knew that if there was no result today, Chu Yang would definitely not give up. As for the result, if he didn't die, then Chu Yang would die. This completely went against his plan, and everything was messed up. At the same time, he was at an absolute disadvantage because Shangguan Lan was next to him. Even if he won, he couldn't kill Chu Yang. Everything he did would be in vain, and it would only give Chu Yang a chance to get to know him better. Whoosh! Thinking of this, Gong Sunlong didn't stay any longer and immediately flew away. "Humph, do you think you can leave?" Chu Yang sneered. Just now, although he was joking around, his attention was always on Gong Sunlong, and he was clear about Gong Suanlong's every move. As soon as Gong Sunlong moved, he also moved. With a whoosh, he moved extremely fast, as if he had broken through the void, and instantly arrived behind Gong Sunlong. He raised the contradictory sword and slashed down. Shocking divine sword art. A sword gleam descended from the sky, and a deity fell from the sky as well. Gong Sunlong only made a slight resistance, and was immediately cut in half by the sword. Hey! Chu Yang was surprised. Although the sword's essence was hidden in the sword, Gong Sunlong was too weak. Chapter 1818. Who would have thought that Gong Sunlong would still be able to speak after being cut in half? At this moment, his blood was pouring down like rain, and his intestines were scattered all over the ground. His body that was split into two halves turned around, allowing everyone to see everything clearly. It was as if they were looking at a human anatomy chart. It was extremely horrifying and gave people goosebumps. Many people could not help but hold their breaths. Bastard, the day we settle our old and new grudges, you will regret coming to this world. Gong Sunlong's voice was very calm. It was as if he was speaking normally, without any anger or resentment. However, such a tone made people shudder and feel a chill down their backs. Especially his lips, which had been cut in half, were moving separately. It was extremely terrifying. The strangest thing was that his throat, which had been cut in half, was still able to make a sound. At this moment, everyone's hair stood on end. Gong Sunlong was even more terrifying than a demon. That kind of horror was indescribable. Bang bang! With two soft sounds, the two halves of Gong Sunlong's body fell from the sky. There was no more sound, and no one made a sound for a long time. I have a headache. Chu Yang's voice was heard. He touched his forehead, and it seemed that he really had a headache. An enemy like Gong Sunlong was more than just a headache. It made people unable to eat or sleep well. It's just a clone. Looks like I have to make a trip. How troublesome. Chu Yang scratched his head in annoyance. Then, he said to Luo Xiu, "Where is your house? Take me there quickly. Otherwise, it's none of my business if you die." Sigh. Then, he let out a long sigh and said, "The plan really can't keep up with the changes. The plan was good, but now it's all gone. I still have to go thousands of miles away to care about the life and death of others. My brain." People finally understood that Chu Yang's headache was not because of Gong Sunlong, but because of Luo Xiu and Luo Xiu's family. Judging from Chu Yang's tone, Luo Xiu's family might have been wiped out. When people realized this, they could not help but gasp. There were many details that they did not know. Obviously, Gong Sunlong's methods were extremely sinister and vicious. Is there enough time? As soon as Luo Xiu opened his mouth, Chu Yang's anger surged up. Stop talking nonsense. If you delay any longer, your family will really be wiped out and all of you will die. Of course, Chu Yang wasn't sure. Gong Sunlong had one of his clones killed by him, so he would definitely be enraged. He might even vent his anger on Luo Xiu's family. As for Gong Sunlong, he should be much faster than Chu Yang and the others. This was also the reason why Chu Yang was so angry. Shua. He directly grabbed Luo Xiu and left quickly. His speed was shockingly fast, and in the blink of an eye, Chu Yang and Luo Xiu's figures completely disappeared. I'm really ridiculous. How could someone like Shameless Chu be afraid of Gong Sunlong? That's right. So what if Gong Sunlong is scary? Can he scare Shameless Chu? Speaking of which, for Gong Sunlong to force Luo Xiu like this, his methods are truly, If Luo Xiu is his dog, then who would dare to be Gong Sunlong's dog in the future? No wonder Shameless Chu was so displeased with Chen Borang earlier. He was so eager to anger Chen Borang to death. People quickly understood Chu Yang's actions. Gong Sunlong had used such despicable methods to force Luo Xiu. Chen Borang did not stop him and even helped Gong Sunlong later. How could Chu Yang let him go? Chapter 1819. Therefore, it didn't matter whether Chu Yang knew it or not. He wouldn't feel anything even if he knew, and he wouldn't feel anything even if he didn't know. He was in a hurry now, so he directly asked Bing Kuan to use the space technique to hurry up. Luo Xiu was almost stunned when he saw Bing Kuan. If my secret is leaked, I will tell you how eunuchs practice. As soon as Chu Yang's evil words fell into Luo Xiu's ears, he couldn't help but feel uncomfortable in a certain part of his body. At the same time, he was full of gratitude to Chu Yang in his heart. Such a big secret was exposed in order to save his family. Luo Xiu was from the East Continent, so his family was naturally in the East Continent. He was stripped naked by Chu Yang and hung up to dry. After that, he took advantage of Gong Sun Long and became Gong Sun Long's dog. Therefore, his family was not in the sphere of influence of the Gong Sun family. After knowing this, Chu Yang couldn't help but feel relieved. The East Continent was extremely vast, but that was relative to ordinary people. For a sage like Bing Kuan, the East Continent couldn't be big. In particular, Bing Kuan was proficient in the space technique, so the entire East Continent seemed even smaller to Bing Kuan. In a very short period of time, Bing Kuan took Chu Yang and Luo Xiu to Luo Xiu's house. At this time, a group of criminals really rushed into Luo Xiu's house. The dog at Luo Xiu's door was the first to suffer. It was directly cut into two halves. The chickens and ducks in the courtyard, as well as a donkey pulling the millstone, were also instantly killed. They were all cut into two halves. Such a scene was obvious at first sight. It was completely Gong Sun Long's revenge and anger. Luo Xiu's anger almost spurted out of his eyes. When he had killed all the criminals, he realized that his palms were covered in cold sweat, and his body was also covered in cold sweat. If he had been a little later, his family would have all been gone. Bang! Luo Xiu directly knelt down and kowtowed to Chu Yang. Bang! 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 Damn it! Chu Yang didn't like troublesome things, and he was already annoyed. Now that he saw the tricks of these criminals, he couldn't be more furious. Gong Sun Long actually vented all his resentment towards Chu Yang on other people. If Gong Sun Long succeeded, Chu Yang felt that he would definitely feel guilty, because there was no way he could get rid of it. Take care of your family. Tell me if you need anything. Of course, Chu Yang was not short of money. He had killed so many arrogant people, so he was filthy rich. Putting everything else aside, just the Star Academy's Bei Chunxing and the myriad courtyards Li Shengsan were enough. The two of them definitely had a lot of worldly wealth in their spaces. Even if they didn't have it, it would be easy to make money by exchanging cultivation resources. That won't be necessary. Luo Xiu stood up. He was still in a state of shock. When he saw his family again, he was deeply frightened by the sudden turn of events. His eyes were filled with hatred. There's no free lunch in this world. Chu Yang couldn't help but add, this time, Gong Sun Long, I hope that there won't be another Gong Sun Long next time. Luo Xiu's body trembled. It could be said that he had made a mistake that would cause everlasting regret. He had indeed gained a lot of benefits by relying on Gong Sun Long, and had even awakened the surer martial soul. However, he had lost even more. He was confident that the surer martial soul would be awakened sooner or later. Even without Gong Sun Long, there definitely won't be a next time. Luo Xiu said with incomparable determination. That's good. Chu Yang nodded and didn't say anything else. If he said anything else, he would be preaching. He didn't have the right to preach to others. Chapter 1820. Luo Xiu's cultivation was extraordinary, and there was no problem in ensuring the safety of his family, so Chu Yang could naturally leave with peace of mind. Xiu, that was your friend just now, right? He came all the way to our house. How could you not invite him in for a cup of tea? Luo Xiu couldn't help but smile bitterly at his parents' reproach. He then muttered to himself, perhaps, I can't be considered his friend, and I shouldn't have such qualifications. That was a noble just now. Luo Xiu's parents were extremely surprised, because they really understood their son's pride too well. How could ordinary people get his respect? But today he actually said such words. Noble? Luo Xiu didn't know how to answer, but after thinking for a while, the talent of a martial artist could be said to be equivalent to the rights of the secular world, and it wasn't wrong to say that he was a noble. He immediately nodded and said, he is indeed a noble, noble beyond words. Perhaps there has never been such a noble person in this world. The noblest noble person in the world. Luo Xiu's parents were frightened and hurriedly said, Xiu, we didn't salute him just now, isn't that a big crime? Luo Xiu smiled. How could the noblest noble person in the world care about this? His nobility has never been built on the lowly of others. This made Luo Xiu's parents instantly respect Chu Yang, and they couldn't help but say, such a noble person, we should salute him even more. Just now, it was simply a big mistake. His parents were full of regret and even blamed Luo Xiu, causing Luo Xiu to instantly suspect that what he said just now was too much, but he felt that it should be right after thinking about it. In his opinion, Chu Yang would eventually become the most powerful existence in this world, the noblest existence. As for Chu Yang's character, it was absolutely not too bad. Otherwise, Chu Yang wouldn't have exposed such a secret that he had a saint by his side, and it was even more impossible for him to help Luo Xiu and save his family. In addition, if Chu Yang didn't care about the life and death of his family, how could Chu Yang, who disliked trouble, be like this? In other words, in Chu Yang's eyes, his parents and family were not lowly. This is definitely a good person. Luo Xiu was extremely sure of this point. Then, Xiu, can he be considered as your friend? Facing his parents' hopeful gazes, Luo Xiu couldn't help but recall everything that had happened between him and Chu Yang. No matter what, they couldn't be considered as friends. They could be considered as enemies. It should count, but it also shouldn't count. Luo Xiu didn't want to disappoint his parents, so he could only answer against his will. How could he not want to have such a friend? If he wasn't your friend, how could he have come all the way here? That might be the case. I hope so too. Luo Xiu heard this and could only reply perfunctorily. Of course, he did not explain in detail. Because this couldn't be explained, and he definitely couldn't let his parents know about everything that happened outside. Otherwise, it would only make them live in fear all day long. The world of Xiuzhe was too cruel. There had never been a day of peace. It was best for ordinary people not to come into contact with that kind of world, let alone know about it. Why wouldn't it count? Luo Xiu's father said, when we just moved, he kept calling me uncle. He was afraid that I would be tired, so he rushed to help me. If he wasn't a friend, how could he be like this? Luo Xiu couldn't help but smile. That's it. Am I right? Luo Xiu's parents were instantly overjoyed. Luo Xiu secretly said in his heart, I should be regarded as a friend by him, and even if he recognizes me as a friend, he will definitely not say it out loud. Wasn't this how men were? Friends didn't need to say anything, because any words would not be more convincing than actions. Besides, on Chu Yang's side, after he rushed back, he suddenly found that the atmosphere was a bit strange. Whether it was the parrot, Kui Xinho's trio, or Liu Yunpeng's trio, they were all a bit strange. Chapter 1821. Chu Yang was originally full of anger, but it had weakened by the time he returned. Now, he couldn't help but burst out again. He glared at them and said angrily, Why are you looking at me like that? Am I handsome enough to make you doubt your life? So handsome that you feel inferior? So handsome that you don't have the face to live in this world? The parrot glanced at Chu Yang with disdain. That's a normal expression. Chu Yang thought to himself. Liu Yunpeng, Xia Wanjin, and Xiong Longxiang all rolled their eyes. This was normal. Only Kui Xinhu and the other two winked at him, as if they wanted to remind him of something. What's going on? Chu Yang was completely puzzled. He had only left for half a day. Could it be that a demon had appeared? It's impossible for such a shocking change to happen in such a short period of time. The situation seems good to me. Chu Yang's anger flared up again. Little bastard, I order you to start farting. The parrot glanced at him again, its expression even more disdainful. It seemed to be taking pleasure in his misfortune, and even seemed to be secretly laughing. Peng Peng, you start farting too. Chu Yang randomly gave Liu Yunpeng a nickname again. Liu Yunpeng staggered when he heard this and almost fell to the ground. Goosebumps rose all over his body. He glared as if to say, You little thing, am I that familiar with you? Jin Jin, you don't have to fart, but you have to spit shit. Xia Wanjin really did want to spit shit. Chu Yang, this little thing, gave him such a disgusting nickname the moment he opened his mouth. Xiong Xiong, since you can fart and spit shit, then tell me your sad story. Xiong Longxiang was originally very sad because not only did he have a ridiculous nickname, but he also had a mixture of farting and shit spewing. However, when he heard the words sad story, he didn't feel sad at all. If he wanted to be sad, then it would be Chu Yang who was sad. Kui Xinhu and the other two completely avoided Chu Yang's firepower. Ayo, I haven't seen you guys for half a day and you guys have already created such a mute game. I'm curious, I want to participate too. Do you guys have any objections? Chu Yang rolled up his sleeves and prepared to fight. At the same time, he shouted, now is not the time to complain. This marshal will pardon your crimes. Otherwise. Kaka. He clenched his fists. I'll let you know what pain is. It's just one word. You'll be in pain many times over. Flutter. The parrot fled at lightning speed. Shua Shua Shua, Liu Yunpeng, Xia Wanjin, and Xiong Longxiang were not to be outdone either. Chu Yang, this grandson, was truly ruthless. He could practically ruin the entire world. Little bitches, you guys are really going against the heavens. Chu Yang felt more and more that something was wrong. He had an impulse to immediately escape, but he didn't know the specific reason. But based on Little Bitch's reaction, there must be a high-energy warning ahead. Who knows, it might be a super big trap. While he was hesitating, a gust of fragrant wind drifted over. Traces of intoxicating fragrance entered his nose, causing him to almost be intoxicated. I know a woman by smelling her. This woman must be so beautiful that it's suffocating. This matter must also have something to do with women, but this marshal hasn't provoked that girl recently. While Chu Yang was thinking, he had already seen this woman. Sure enough, this woman was so beautiful that it was suffocating, making people forget everything. It was as if this kind of woman, even if one died just from looking at her, would not have lived for so long in vain. He was stunned for a moment. The woman's appearance was like a whirlpool, sucking in all his mind and soul, making him completely lose his soul. She was so beautiful that it was indescribable. Her heart was about to melt. Brother Yang, how could you open your mouth and speak such shameful word? Chapter 1823. She began to retaliate. Brother Yang, do you think that I'm already invulnerable to swords and spears and invulnerable to poison? Shangguan Lan suddenly closed in on Chu Yang, and the two of them stared at each other. The fragrance on her body became stronger and more intoxicating, but Chu Yang did not have time to indulge in it. His heart was beating like a drum. He said, Empress Lan Lan, your husband has committed a great crime, but you should at least let him know his crime and die in peace. Haha. Parrot and the others laughed so hard that they were about to explode. When had Chu Yang ever seen such a side? His timid and cautious appearance could be said to be a rare sight that had not been seen many times in the human world. To Parrot and the others, such a side of Chu Yang was the greatest miracle in the world. Parrot and the others had the same thoughts as Shangguan Lan. She was laughing like crazy in her heart. She thought to herself, so Brother Yang respects me so much. Without respect, there would naturally be no reverence. And who had Chu Yang ever been afraid of? Looking at his actions, he was unrestrained and unrestrained. There was probably no one else in the world who could make him like this except for herself. Perhaps, this is Brother Yang's trick. Shangguan Lan felt that she was unique, but she felt a little apologetic. She immediately attributed this to Chu Yang's conspiracy. She did not intend to tease Chu Yang anymore. Just as she was about to speak, she saw that Chu Yang's forehead was about to sweat. She hurriedly said, there should be at least one time in your life that you forget yourself for someone. I don't ask for a result, don't ask for companionship, don't ask for ownership, and don't even ask for love. I only ask for meeting you in my most beautiful years. Shangguan Lan's heart suddenly softened. She thought to herself, where did all this nonsense come from? Brother Yang. She could not help but laugh out loud. She finally said, "Don't tell me you don't know what you've done today." Chu Yang was stunned for a second. After going through everything related to Shangguan Lan, he immediately understood. He let out a long sigh in his heart. "I finally figured it out. It turned out to be because of this. Is there a need to make such a fuss? Lan Lan, your husband's life is in danger, so I called you for help. It's all my fault." Chu Yang put on a sad and wronged appearance, which instantly made the parrot and the others laugh like crazy. "Can't you secretly transmit your voice to me?" Shangguan Lan immediately glared at Chu Yang. Her flirtatious expression almost charmed Chu Yang to death. "Lan Lan, I really like your expression just now. Do it again." Shangguan Lan directly rolled her eyes. Her face could not help but turn red. She almost could not speak in a reproachful tone. "Brother Yang, if you dare to be indecent with me, don't blame me for being angry." Chu Yang naturally understood the reason. The women in this world did not have much face after all. His repeated torment had probably exceeded the limit of Shangguan Lan's heart. He felt a little guilty and immediately explained, "Lan Lan, that would not achieve the effect. The gigolo would definitely not be angered half to death. Just for this purpose." "Of course not," Chu Yang said firmly. "Provoking the gigolo is incidental. I haven't seen you for a long time, Lan Lan. I'm very excited. I must show off our love and make all the single people in the world jealous." It could have been a moving sentence, but when it came out of Chu Yang's mouth, it sounded crazy. Shangguan Lan could not help but roll her eyes again. Before she could speak, Chu Yang immediately added, "Lan Lan, your appearance just now was really a different kind of flirtatious expression. It has never been seen before in this world." Chapter 1824. Shangguan Lan couldn't get angry at Chu Yang at all. She grumbled in her heart, "Sweetheart, are you trying to embarrass me to death? Brother Yang." But when she saw Chu Yang's indecent appearance, she immediately steadied her mind and threatened, "Brother Yang, if you do it one more time." She didn't know what to use to threaten Chu Yang. She immediately flashed her fist, revealing her violent genes. Chu Yang widened his eyes and looked at Shangguan Lan in astonishment, as if he had just found out Shangguan Lan's true colors. This made Shangguan Lan annoyed, and her voice became even more severe. "Brother Yang, did you hear that?" Shangguan Lan realized that she was misunderstood by Chu Yang. Suddenly, her eyes rolled, scaring Chu Yang so much that he jumped up and said quickly, I know, I must know." Chu Yang was most afraid of women's tears. But after the initial horror, he immediately tried, "Lan Lan, that can't be done in public, but it's okay in private." If he were to be husband and wife with Shangguan Lan, Chu Yang felt that he would only be more presumptuous. Suddenly, Shangguan Lan's face turned red to her ears. "Lan Lan, can you do it?" "Idiot Chu, waha." When the parrot heard this, it almost laughed to death. Chu Hang, who had always been as cunning as a ghost, was actually so stupid. Idiot. Shangguan Lan was also full of hatred. He still had to ask such a question, and how could she answer it? Chu Yang noticed and blushed. He immediately said to Shangguan Lan, "Let's go, Lan Lan, let's go to other places to see the scenery. I envy this group of single dogs." "Ah!" Shangguan Lan suddenly screamed, because Chu Yang had already picked her up and ran out. In an instant, they completely disappeared. Shangguan Mai was stunned on the spot, as if to say, "This bastard Chu Yang is rotten to such an extent. Damn little sheep." The red bird was cursing as it was rudely swept down from Shangguan Lan's shoulder by Chu Yang. "Miss, according to Chu Hang's character, I reckon he won't be back for a while. Come with me to a place and wait." Xia Wanjin appeared next to Shangguan Mai gracefully. He was very considerate. He was afraid that Shangguan Mai would feel awkward alone here, so he came to save her. Liu Yunpeng and Xiong Longxiang abruptly stopped laughing. Their eyes widened. That bastard Xia Wanjin was really fast. Just as they were laughing, that bastard had already made his move. They wanted to ruin the relationship, but in the end, they didn't do it. A gentle and virtuous woman was a good match for a gentleman. This was natural. Shangguan Mai's face immediately turned red. How could she not understand when it was so obvious? What about me? The red bird was extremely discontent. It was actually given the cold shoulder. Parrot, the guest is here. Why don't you accompany the guest? Xiong Longxiang wanted to push the parrot, but who would have thought that the parrot was so excited that it flew up and pecked him on the face. Xiong Longxiang cried out in pain, "Damn bird, you don't know how to be kind. Kind your ass." The parrot cursed loudly. Who would fancy that female bird? Looking at her red body, this divine bird wants to vomit. The red bird immediately became angry. Cheap bird, shameless bird, who would fancy you? Seeing a disgusting bird like you, I want to vomit out the dinner I had 3 days ago. My dinner from 7 days ago. My dinner from 8 days ago. My dinner from 9 days ago. The parrot and the red bird quarreled. The onlookers were dumbfounded. The parrot had always been sharp and cheap, so how could it suddenly scold people like this? Afterwards, haha, everyone laughed crazily. What did it mean by enemies meeting on a daily basis? This was it. Chapter 1825. We, the common people, are so happy today. When Chu Yang came back, humming a tune and smiling like a flower, he immediately found himself surrounded and interrogated by many eyes. How dare you get so close to me after committing such a big crime? Chu Yang clenched his fists and said, "You're so nosy and you want to know the progress. Did you kiss me? That's another crime." Bang! 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 Xia Wanjin and Liu Yunpeng were the first to be hit. Chu Hang is back to normal. He's going to take revenge. Everyone, run. The parrot let out a loud cry, and flapped its wings incessantly. Its speed was extremely fast, but Chu Yang caught up with it in an instant. His big hand grabbed it, and fiercely pulled it out, turning it into a naked bird in an instant. Chu Hang is cruel and merciless. He overthrew this tyrant. It's time to shout and destroy Chu Hang together. Chu Hang, you deserve it. This is your retribution. Xiong Longxiang, Liu Yunpeng and Liu Yunpeng joined forces, and then the parrot joined in as well. The 4 of them fought fiercely against Chu Yang, shaking the sky and the earth. Explosions occurred one after another, and dazzling light shone everywhere. Even the Sky Academy was alerted. Unfortunately, the people outside couldn't see this battle at all, and didn't dare to come in. In the end, Liu Yunpeng and the parrot were all suppressed, and Chu Yang was beaten black and blue. The 4 of them really couldn't be underestimated when they joined forces, especially Liu Yunpeng and the other 2, who were all in the first layer of life and death realm. It was really tricky to deal with them. However, this was just a fight, and there was no life and death battle. It was hard to say how strong they were. This freak is too inhumane. I can't even defeat this bastard in the death realm. I'm really hurt. Sure enough, I'm really irritated. Liu Yunpeng, Xia Wanjin, and Xiong Longxiang had been hanging out with the parrot for a long time. At this time, they were also cursing and swearing, feeling somewhat frustrated. The parrot was used to this situation, and was calm as a bird. After recovering from its injuries, it began to lecture them. "Look at your conduct. You're so weak," it said. "Look at you. You're so weak. Also, take a look at this bird's strength." While it was showing off, it had already arrived in front of Chu Yang and said with a flattering smile, "Chu Hang, teach me a thing or two." The eyes of Xiong Longxiang and the other 2 lit up. They immediately realized that they were indeed inferior to the bird. The strength of the bird was really worth learning from. Immediately, they surrounded him. After that, Kui Xinhu and the other 2 joined in, and the discussion became very lively. Regardless of whether it was the parrot, Xia Wanjin's group of 3, or Kui Xinhu and the others, after hearing about Chu Yang's understanding of martial arts, they were incomparably shocked. They also realized that Chu Yang's understanding of martial arts was completely different from theirs. It could be said that he was like a heavenly steed soaring across the sky, and it was completely untraceable. Time passed silently like this. There were many people outside who tried to investigate the situation inside, but to no avail. In the end, many people were killed, and the periphery immediately quieted down. In the blink of an eye, the Astral 6 tournament was 2 days away. Chu Yang and the others paused their cultivation and went to participate in the tournament. Regardless of whether it was the Sky Academy, the Star Academy, the Myriad Academy, or the Skysword Academy, one had to be at least in the Inner Academy to be qualified to participate in the Astral Six tournament. Of course, the strength of the Inner Academy students was very weak compared to the elite students and even the holy disciples, so their strength could be said to be uneven. Therefore, the first stage of the Astral Six tournament was to eliminate the weaker students. Chapter 1826. The elimination method was not the same as the martial arts competition, because there were too many people in the 6 academies. It was not only a lot of work but also very difficult to organize. The most important thing was that it took too much time, which was absolutely unacceptable to the 6 academies. Therefore, when the 6 academies held a joint competition, they did not use such an elimination method. Instead, they chose a secret realm and set up various tests to test the students. This time, the venue chosen for the joint competition was not in a dimensional world, but in a well-known mountain range in the East Continent, the Zhongtian Mountain Range. The Zhongtian Mountain Range was almost located in the center of the East Continent. There were endless mountains in it, and there were many dangerous places in the deepest part where there were many powerful demonic beasts. In addition, there were many relics in it, which were said to be left behind from the last era. Of course, it was also a place where the martial artists of the East Continent often went to explore, gain experience, and search for treasures. It could be said that it was a place where good and bad people mixed together. Therefore, the students who participated in the joint competition not only had to face the dangers in the mountain range, but also many martial artists of the East Continent. It could be said that the test was very difficult. After all, the martial arts practice field of the joint competition was set in the deepest part of the Zhongtian mountain range. Even if no one interfered, it was very difficult for ordinary students to enter the center of the mountain range. To be exact, it was very difficult for them to survive. Before going to the Zhongtian mountain range to participate in the competition, Chu Yang had one more thing to deal with: Chen Borang. It had been decided that the two of them would have a fight before the tournament began. At this time, all the students of the academies would go to the Zhongtian mountain range to participate in the joint competition. Therefore, when they gathered, not only the students of the Inner Academy, but also the students of the Elite Academy and Holy Disciples would appear. Therefore, it was most appropriate to compete in front of these people. Who was stronger, Chu Yang or Chen Borang? Who would let everyone see? Who would be the winner and who would be the loser in the end? Who would be the last to show off? The students of the Sky Academy were naturally aware of this, so they were all waiting to see the battle between Chu Yang and Chen Borang when they arrived at the gathering place. After all, this battle was worth watching. Chen Borang was undoubtedly a peerless genius and a disciple of the Central Province. His realm was not low, and he was already in the Death Soul realm. His strength was unfathomable. Chu Yang was from the Eastern Wilderness. He was extremely arrogant and looked down on everyone. He had caused chaos in the Sky Academy, but no one could do anything to him until now. Most importantly, Chu Yang was Shangguan Lan's fiancé. Perhaps not everyone, but most of the people in the Sky Academy wanted to see what Shangguan Lan's fiancé was like. Chu Yang and the others had yet to arrive, but the students who had gathered were already discussing animatedly. Between Chu Yang and Chen Borang, who do you think will win? Is there even a need to ask? Of course, I have high hopes for Chen Borang. That wild dog won't be able to jump around for long. Wild dog. Be careful of your mouth. If you're targeted by Shameless Chu, he'll kill you directly if you're not in the top class. If you're in the top class, you'll be humiliated to death. Brother, you're right. How many people have been defeated by him? All of them had an absolute advantage at first, but all of them were defeated in the end. Even a figure like Long Xiaojun was forced to swear to compromise in the end. When they suddenly mentioned Long Xiaojun, the voices in this place stopped, because Long Xiaojun was close to them. At this time, Long Xiaojun was no longer surrounded by girls. He was like a crane in a flock of chickens. No one dared to approach him, and it seemed that no one could stand side by side with him. Buzz. Chapter 1827. Young lord, please forgive us. We didn't mean to offend you. Long Xiaojun didn't say anything, nor did he make a move. He retracted his gaze because the other party was telling the truth. Although it was a great humiliation, he had to admit it. He still had the courage to do so. Chen Burang might not win. In fact, he was also guessing. Although Chen Burang's cultivation level was much higher than his, if Chen Burang dared to use his full strength to suppress Long Xiaojun, the final outcome would be the same as his. Chu Yang could trigger the lightning tribulation at any time, and it was extremely terrifying. Long Xiaojun was even more convinced of this after he learned that Chu Yang had passed 9 consecutive heavenly tribulations. Before he was injured, Chu Yang's heavenly tribulation had caused Long Xiaojun to be even more fearful of Chu Yang. Originally, his compromise wasn't wrong. Otherwise, he would have definitely died if he was caught in the heavenly tribulation. Even now, he didn't know how Chu Yang had survived such a heavenly tribulation. Why am I thinking so much? Since I've already sworn, I won't harm him. No matter how humiliating it is, I won't make a move. Although he said this, Long Xiaojun was still guessing who would win the battle between Chu Yang and Chen Burang. Gong Sun Long's clone shouldn't be too weak, but it was cut in half by Shameless Chu's sword. There's no need to mention Gong Sun Long. That Luo Xiu's cultivation level is already very shocking. He's neither human nor ghost nor god. How many people can withstand those 3 saber moves? That's right. Shameless Chu's strength is definitely unfathomable. Even when facing an opponent like Luo Xiu, it's impossible to force him to use his trump card. I'm just curious. Why didn't Luo Xiu use the Nirvana flame when he's in the Nirvana realm? Long Xiaojun heard the discussions of others and instantly felt that the winner should be Chu Yang and not Chen Burang. As for why Luo Xiu didn't use the Nirvana flame, he could only sneer. If he dared to use such a method, he would die an even more horrible death. The flame of Nirvana was extremely powerful, especially against those below the Nirvana realm, but it also depended on who it was. If that person is Chu Yang, no matter how strong your Nirvana flame is, can it be stronger than that guy's lightning tribulation? The Nirvana flame might not be able to burn Chu Yang to death, but that fellow's lightning tribulation will definitely be able to kill you. Accompanied by the air-breaking sound, Chen Burang, who was wearing a white robe and a white face, arrived in the field in the blink of an eye. Floating in the air, he cupped his hands and said to the crowd, "Everyone, please make a battlefield for me. Before the competition of the 6 academies, I want to settle a personal feud here." With Chen Burang at the center, the crowd retreated in all directions like a receding tide, opening up a huge battlefield for Zhongxian. That shameless scum, how is he fit to fight with young Master Chen? This is simply too hateful. What did young Master Chen say wrong? That scum is simply a scumbag. He's despicable, shameless, and despicable. If young Master Chen were to fight with him, I'm afraid he would dirty young Master Chen. When the female students of the Sky Academy saw Chen Burang, their hearts were filled with love. They madly attacked Chu Yang and scolded him, saying that he was worthless. Even so, they still felt that it was not enough. They were all filled with righteous indignation and even wanted to go over together and beat Chu Yang to death with their flowery but impractical moves. Ha ha ha, Chu Hang, the forest has abandoned you. A strange laughter came from the sky, which immediately silenced the female students. Others laugh at me for being too crazy, but I laugh at them for not seeing it. Alas! With a long sigh, Chu Yang and the others also arrived.